order and COVID-19 pandemic protocols, this meeting is being conducted in a virtual setting using Zoom. Members of the public may view and listen to the meeting live on channel 29 and online as noted on the agenda. I will now call the special meeting of the City Council to order. Please stand and join me in the saluting our nation's flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic
for which
for
it
which it stands, one nation, under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Brown,
Here.
Narum,
Here.
Hinton,
Here.
Hesta,
Here.
Mayor Thorne.
Here. Well, once again, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Pleasant City Council's community listening session. Tonight's listening session is an important early step of the council's adopted action plan as we encourage a public dialogue regarding community policing in Pleasanton. This evening, there is no real formal agenda. We have no staff report and no action will be taken tonight. The council is here to listen and gather input from you, our community. We want to hear about your experience, expectations and concerns about policing in Pleasanton. We need to gain an understanding of the systemic challenges faced by communities of color in Pleasanton, including experiences and challenges with the Pleasanton Police Department. We heard from many residents at our July 14th special council meeting, at which time we adopted our action plan. If you were not able to participate last week, that report and meeting video are available for review on the city's website on the City Council meeting page. The council and I are committed to hearing all of your input so that together we can create an environment that welcomes feedback and leads into difficult conversations. Tonight, we have over 100 people who have asked to speak. So I am going to have to ask everyone to limit your time to 2 minutes. A timer will appear on the screen, and I ask that once it turns yellow, you begin to wrap up your comment. Madam Clerk, please call the first speaker.
Our first speaker is Joe Reed, followed by John Bauer.
Joe Reed.
I don't see Joe Reed in the room.
Okay, move on to John Bauer.
Go ahead, John.
Thank you. While having dinner recently, two ladies sitting next to me started to talk to me about the Pleasanton Police Department. They described the PPD as being racist and supported their conclusion by sharing many hand observations of interactions between Black people and PPD. My experiences: we've had numerous contacts with the PPD in the 60 days before our son, Jacob Bauer, was killed by Pleasanton Police in 2018. During those numerous meetings with PPD in which we desperately pleaded for help, we were laughed at by one officer. Another officer came to our home and stated that Jacob had it too easy, needs to hit rock bottom. We should start his descent by evicting him from our home. Another meeting, an officer minimized Jacob's problems, stating that they were small compared to 50% of the PUSD students on medication for psychological problems. When our family really needed the services of PPD, their response was always, if he's not a threat to himself or others, nothing we can do. With the PPD in every one of our meetings, we stated that Jacob was a pacifist and was not a danger. Expectations: all the advertising says, if someone is in a state of crisis, call 911. Well, when 911 is called, a member of law enforcement responds. It is the expectation, to name a few, of healthcare providers, mental health advocates, school districts. When 911 is called, police will not respond like they are going into a war zone, but respond to a person who needs medical help. I have witnessed firsthand a child being lifted off a bike and thrown to the ground and handcuffed by PPD. An autistic child tackled to the ground and handcuffed by 3 PPD officers, dragging and kicking the child 100 feet and placed in the patrol car. 2 men of color pulled over for a non-moving violation, handcuffed, and had their car thoroughly searched.
Mr. Bauer, you need to start wrapping up, sir.
Okay. My advice to the PPD is next time they kill someone, and it will happen unless substantive changes are made to their policy, attitude, and culture, do not immediately assassinate the character of the deceased. Speaking for my family, Jacob's friends and coworkers, hearing these lies only strengthens our resolve. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, sir.
Mayor, did we explain that there was a change of time limit?
Yes.
Did we
Yes,
explain?
yes.
Okay.
Next speaker is Joshua Rodriguez, followed by Mark Shaver.
Hello, I am Joshua Rodriguez, and I want to thank you for allowing me to speak. I live across the street from Walmart, and which is this location where we had a curfew, and this was a building that was boarded up, and I was able to be in peace that I was going to be safe because my police officers of Pleasanton were going to be watching over my home. And I have never, and now let me know, I am a Hispanic. I have never been profiled. I have never been treated any differently because of my skin color or how I look. Now, I am one who has always been on the right side of the law. I have never experienced being a criminal and have experienced needing to be put in cuffs. I have been put in cuffs before, and I have been shot up by police before because I was a volunteer for training for police officers. I was a volunteer for a high school shooting that I was going to be a terrorist, and they were going to perform shooting on me. They were going to protect the school while I try to shoot other students. This was over in Union City. I have a great amount of respect for our police officers. I am so grateful that you dedicate your time and you risk your lives every single day for us. Please do not cut back on any budget. And I am willing to be there with you guys every step of the way to help defend you guys against anybody who tries to threaten that, because I want to be a voice of advocacy for you that you have been nothing but superior. And I absolutely love how transparent you guys have been on social media. You update everybody with what's going on in our neighborhoods and let us know what happened down the street when we see a number of police cars. I appreciate that, and I hope that others see what Pleasanton's doing and they do what you guys do, because you didn't wait for George Floyd to happen for you guys to show that you guys care about the community and play part of the community. You've been doing so all along, and I applaud you for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment, sir. Next speaker, please.
Mark Shaver, followed by Jill Buck.
Mark?
Hi, how are you? Thank you for the opportunity to express my opinion. Throughout my entire life, I've always had a great respect for police officers, and that includes the thankfully few times when I've had to experience them at work up close and personally. What we are witnessing today, where even though it's a small, radical, misguided group of pseudo-American citizens that are criticizing our police to the point of wanting to abolish them altogether, is unthinkable at least, and more accurately infuriating to me. I also absolutely 100% disagree with anyone in any position in private life or public life that says our police departments across the nation need reforming and can do better. I have complete and total trust and faith in their ability to manage themselves, to do their job in the most ethical and honorable way that they have been sworn and committed to. If they want to initiate reform and improve on the way they deliver their service, that's entirely up to them. But for the record, I think they're doing a damn good job right now. If any of us wants to be critical about behavior and improvement, take a look in a mirror and get to work. When you consider the unimaginable stress and danger police officers everywhere are faced with during every shift, How could we even think for 1 minute about trying to give them an ounce of advice on how to do possibly the most dangerous, unselfish, and indispensable job on earth? Political correctness is an abhorrent disorder that America faces today. This current anti-police sentiment smells like political correctness to me, and I think it stinks. As a 38-year resident of Pleasanton, I side with and support the Pleasanton Police Department. I welcome and congratulate our new Chief Swing. I wish him well, and I'm confident that he knows that the overwhelmingly majority of our residents, and for that matter, people all across America, appreciate, rely on, and are indebted to him and his fellow officers everywhere. I can't think of another group of men and women who have a more positive safeguarding effect on our community. May God bless and protect them all. I cannot thank them enough for their excellent, courageous, unflinching, 24/7, 365 days a year service. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate you taking time to be with us tonight. Next speaker.
Jill Buck, followed by Linda Kelly.
Okay, right there, Chief Swing, right there. He's writing it down.
Jill?
I don't see it. I don't see Jill Buck in the room, but there is a Linda. I don't know if it's Linda Kelly.
I did perfect.
I'm here.
Who, Jerry?
This is Linda. Go ahead, Linda.
He's the mayor. He was laughing.
I'm not speaking
Was he?
for myself,
Was he kind of done? Yeah, he like-
but reading a letter that I was asked to read because the author felt it was too raw for her to read it.
I've helped him get elected too.
My personal experience with the PPD over the years. Unfortunately, I had a son with bipolar who was also addicted to drugs. Not an unusual combination. We as parents, along with friends and other professionals, tried to help my son, who I'll call Mike, tried to help him stay off drugs and on his meds. His fight was hard for him and also for us as parents. For years, we allowed Mike to live with us, thinking that keeping him off the streets would somehow help him. And no parent likes to tell their sick child to leave. But eventually, his sickness was making my husband and me sick. Over the years, Mike got progressively worse. None of the programs seemed to stick, and at a time, he would be so strung out, it would make me feel as if I was losing my mind. There were also times of belligerence. On multiple occasions, I had to call the police department to intervene. I couldn't get through to Mike and occasionally felt in need of the department's help and insight. Many of the responding officers had come to know Mike, and if they saw him walking on the streets, would stop and ask how he was doing. Thankfully, he never hit us, but on drugs, no one never knows what can happen. The drugs did make him delusional. I'm sure that we called the PD a dozen times over the course of 15 years, and every time the officers treated my husband, myself, and Mike with equal respect. I appreciated that because we certainly were feeling humiliation and shame, and I'm sure Mike was also. I never saw him antagonizing, even when he had to be cuffed and taken to John George, the county mental hospital. It is my hope that officers will continue to be trained about mental illness and drug abuse so they can be even better equipped to help. The most
Linda, we're going to have to ask you to wrap it up, okay?
Okay. The most frustrating fact was that most of the time officers would look at me helplessly and say, "We're sorry, there isn't anything we can do." If he's not talking about taking his life or someone else's, he can't be held on a 5150. Hopefully dollars can be allocated to build more facilities that can treat and help our loved ones. I could say more about the subject on how mentally ill are cast out like garbage, but this is about my experiences with the police department, and I have nothing but good things to say about my encounters with them. It might be beneficial to have someone working in-house to help with me on the calls and visits. A long-time resident.
Thank you for reading that to us. I'm going to remind everyone once again that we are limited to 2 minutes this evening. So please be advised of that. Next speaker, please.
Varun Iyer, followed by Laura Danielson.
Varun?
I don't see a Varun in the room, Mayor.
Laura
Mayor,
Daniel? Yeah.
We seem to have an issue with our waiting room. Even though we have a large meeting account for 500 users, we're getting reports that people trying to join the room are saying it's maxed out at 100. So
Yes.
I can't solve it right now with Zoom because I would have to contact our technical support. But what I would ask for, those who have spoken, if you can drop off Zoom and pick up the meeting live on either channel 29 or YouTube. If you go on YouTube and you search the City of Pleasanton, you can catch the stream live there, and that'll open up the room for other speakers. Sorry for the inconvenience, but it was sort of unforeseen.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Have a great rest of the day.
I'm sorry, Cindy, can you announce the next speaker?
Sure. Laura Danielson, followed by Xiaofeng Chen.
I don't see Laura in the room.
She's trying to get on, as so many others are.
Okay, we're at 91 right now, so there's 9 slots, so get in fast. What's the other name, Cindy?
Xiaofeng Chen.
All right, we're good.
Hi, thank you everyone for the very important conversation. My name is Xiaofeng Chen. I live in Pleasanton. I'm the co-founder and president of Alan Hu Foundation. My beautiful, wonderful son, Alan, passed away due to mental illness by suicide at age 15. Please check out Alan's story at our website, alanhufoundation.org. Alan suffered from major depressive disorder, anxiety disorder, and borderline personality disorder trait. He was 53 times by police officers when his symptoms got really bad. Each time he was traumatized. In one of those crises, Alan was on Golden Gate Bridge feeling extremely lonely and didn't know what to do. He needed mental health counselors' guidance and compassion. However, when the police officers found him, they handcuffed him, questioned him in a small room, threw him in the back of the police patrol car, and brought him to the hospital. Alan felt that he was treated like a criminal and was greatly humiliated and traumatized. Later, he said he'd rather die than go to the hospital again. It breaks my heart to tell you this. Mental illness is a kind of brain disease. When people with a mental illness are in crisis and want to kill themselves, they're having a medical emergency and need medical assistance. Their brains are malfunctioning at the moment and they're having a brain attack. Should a person having a heart attack be handcuffed? A person having a brain attack should not be handcuffed either. They need paramedics with mental health trainings to assess the situation, to stabilize them, and to find emergency mental health medical treatments for them. They need emergency mental health medical expertise and compassion. They do not need law enforcement. In Eugene, Oregon, medics and mental health counselors are sent out to respond to the kinds of 911 calls that wouldn't necessarily require police intervention. You can find the story at CNN's website with the title, "This Town of 170,000 Replaced Some Cops with Medics and Mental Health Workers." It's worked for over 30 years. It's a better alternative to help people in the mental health crisis. I hope the city of Pleasanton will do something similar soon to reform the police force and to staff medics and mental health counselors to really help people in mental crises. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker.
Thank you for sharing your family's sorrow.
Rose Bauer, followed by Adrian Wolf.
Can you hear
Rose
me?
Bauer.
Hello.
Yes.
We have followed the advice of mental health experts. My husband, John Bauer, went to PPD to make them aware of our son's mental state. John told Officer Mike that if the PPD encountered Jacob, they should know he is harmless and he would just walk home if left alone. Officer Mike assured John their department is so highly trained in de-escalation and no harm will come to Jacob. Within a month, Jacob was dead as a result of an encounter with PPD. The officers failed to use a single de-escalation tactic. They labeled him as a homeless person. Jacob was tortured and killed over a few bottles of Coca-Cola. After reading about the events surrounding John Deming Jr. and Shannon Estill, we did not trust what the police reported regarding the death of Jacob. We hired a private investigator. Our investigator was at one time a Pleasanton police sergeant. He told us he quit the force because he did not like the attitude, decline of the department culture, nor the tactics being used by the department. He ended up quitting our case due to the retaliation he incurred by the Pleasanton Police Department. I know there are more good officers than bad. Unfortunately, the good officers choose to cover up for the misconduct of the few or face retaliation. In my experience, there have been multiple repeated violations of Pleasanton's own 21st century policing policy. Pleasanton needs concrete change within their police department. The city of Pleasanton has proven it is impossible to objectively investigate their own police department. Currently, the city of Pleasanton does not provide the public with truth or transparency, and no one is accountable. Without reform, your loved one could be the next fatality. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next
Thank
speaker, please.
you. Thank you, Rose.
Next speaker, please.
Adrian Wolf, followed by Brad Hurst.
Adrian.
I cut a whole minute out.
I
Adrian,
don't see an Adrian in the room.
who's the next speaker?
Brad Hurst.
Hey, Mayor. We'll go with
Brad.
Brad, and then Jill Buck has arrived in the room.
Is Brad on?
Go ahead, Brad.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Am I on?
you're on.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, council members, for taking on this issue and for your service. Tonight, I'm speaking on behalf of Frank Capella and myself. We are both 50-year residents of Pleasanton, and we're going to share a couple of experiences that none of you are aware of because none of you nor any of the senior city staff were here in the late 70s and early 80s. In 1980, the west side of the 500 block on Main Street was persona non grata for ladies. There were 3 bars and it was a motorcycle gang gathering mecca. Women did not walk down the west side of the 500 block of Main Street. Similarly, the parking lot on Valley Avenue between Jack in the Box and Perry's Liquors was a gathering place for construction workers at 4 o'clock in the afternoon to drink beer and smoke pot, and on weekends for high school and post-high school students to drink beer and smoke pot. Fortunately, the city of Pleasanton hired a new police chief in 1980, Bill Eastman. He cleaned up both issues within a matter of a few months, but he took it on, he addressed it, and he conquered it. In the early 80s, there was a Santa Rita jail escapee who came into Pleasanton, raped a housewife in her home in Val Vista, stole her car, and left. That perp was apprehended. I had a couple of personal experiences with buildings that I built in 82 and 85, where the police came along on opening night. Back doors were mistakenly left open. I got calls in the middle of the night from Pleasanton Police to alert me to our foible and correct the issue and prevent crime. There have been many others, but my time is almost up, so I'd like to just leave you with 3 thoughts. To the police department, our fine police department, if you don't lose the streets, you don't have to take them back. To the city council, you will do something, this will be a legacy issue for you. You will either degrade public safety, leave it as status quo, or improve it. And to our fine citizens who want to deform and defund our police, live 2 weeks without them. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Jill Buck, come back into the room? Is Jill Buck in the room?
She is, but
Hello,
her phone's
Mr.
muted.
Mayor and City Council members. Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm unmuted now. Can you? All right. Thank you so much for your time. Since the last meeting on this subject, I've been looking at our police reports and our police blotter and looking at some of the varieties of crimes that have been committed and the locations in which those have been committed. And one of the things that I'm noticing is that if we're going to keep the 4-minute response time or better, defunding our police force would make it very difficult to keep the response time that we all enjoy and expect out of our 911 call, the police budget. And I've noticed that it's uniformed officers, some of the community service officers, and then of course, some of the administrative staff that keep those response times at 4 minutes or less, and that would be the dispatch and what have you. And all of this information is readily available on the city website. Encourage any of my fellow Pleasanton citizens who are thinking about the police force budget to take a look at that. It's not overbloated in any stretch of the imagination. And in fact, if we need our police officers, we want them to be there 4 minutes or less, this level of staffing and this level of budget is very appropriate. And I hope that we do not take any action to defund our police department. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your thoughtful comments. Next speaker?
Michaela Tran, followed by Heather Trureau.
Michaela, are you there?
Hello?
Michaela?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, good morning, good evening, everyone. First off, I would like to extend my gratitude to our elected officials and members of the police department that are here with us today to listen to our community voices. My name is Michaela. As I said, I've been a resident of Pleasanton my entire life, almost 21 years now. I graduated from Donald Elementary School as a Cub, then I was a Hart Husky, and then I was a Foothill Falcon, graduating in 2017. And that's all my funny way of saying that I am by all means a direct product of Pleasanton and our amazing community. This is not my first time being active in our community. Back in 2017, I was fortunate enough to receive the Juanita Hagen Community of Character Award. Throughout high school, I was extremely involved in the Community Service Club Interact, where I formed strong working relationships with local Rotarians. This past summer, I interned with the Go Green Initiative, hi Jill, and helping benchmark the energy usage in Pleasanton buildings in order to generate cost-saving and environmentally friendly recommendations for the city. I say all this in order to give context as to who I am, why I'm here, and why I care. I'm here because I love my community and I want it to get better. I care because my family and I have lost our faith and trust in the local police department years ago. I care because I don't want that to be the case for any other family in Pleasanton. To be honest, it's quite disheartening to hear members of my community try to dismiss or otherwise belittle voices such as my own. I've been told many times as a young woman that I have no right to make noise, that I have no right to criticize the community that raised me. And that's quite upsetting to me when I see people try to dismiss young voices just because we are bringing up concerns rather than praise. So tonight I ask all of you to listen and to listen fully and to act urgently on these needs because people's lives are on the line. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker?
Heather Trureau, followed by Jack Balch.
Heather?
Yes, hello, this is Heather Trureau. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm calling to voice my opinion that I think we need to put some more effort into just improving the police department. Status quo is not going to suffice any longer. There is a national movement that is going to push things forward. I think we can be a leader by taking the initiative to fine tune and get those 21st century policing pieces in place that we don't have currently. I want to put a special attention on civilian oversight. We have the examples, and I praise the Bauer family for speaking tonight. It took a lot of courage to be able to do that. We need to make sure that there is oversight on these policies. You can see there is public interest in it. And we need to make sure that if there are complaints, that can be raised to an issue. No one can police themselves, no industry, no nothing. And it's the same for the police. We need to have that oversight as a primary. Secondarily, it is very important that we look at the amount of mental health issues that are being brought up. My understanding is that last year it was over 500 cases here in Pleasanton where the police had to respond. This can be done better. I know that people have brought up the example of Eugene, Oregon. The reason that's brought up is not to make us Eugene, Oregon, or to make some other thing shoved onto Pleasanton. It's to show there is an example of how you can do better for less money. And there's a model that works, and it's been working for 30 years. There are many other models as well. I thank you for your time. I look forward to working with Chief Swing and anyone else interested in improving the police department. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your thoughtful comment. Next speaker, please.
Jack Balch, followed by Nancy Panett.
Jack?
Hello, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Jack Balch, and I'm a City of Pleasanton Planning Commissioner, but the views expressed are my own and not the commission's. I'd like to first thank you for your service. Similar to my comments on July 14th, I wish to begin by saying that I believe we do have one of the finest professional law enforcement organizations in the state, and we should not shy away from the challenge of making public safety the best it can be in Pleasanton, for Pleasanton. I wish to emphasize that we ask our police department, the men and women that serve us, to handle a wide variety of matters. Per the 2019 Pleasanton Police Department Annual Report, the force responded to 65,565 calls for service in 2019, and 37 of those represented interactions with use of force, 0.06%. As you are aware, after 5 o'clock, when many other city departments generally close for the day, the Pleasanton Police Department becomes our Swiss Army knife for many of our issues, including calls for animal control, homelessness, water leaks, downed trees, power lines, as well as mental health. Not to mention the more typical scope of work, such as thefts, auto assaults, burglaries, DUIs, and robberies. It does not come as a surprise to me that a department that operates for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to serve us has a larger budget than one that operates 8 to 5. I also do expect that a fully outfitted patrol car costs more than a standard pool car used by other departments. But I will say, with all we are asking them to do, I am not sure asking our force to be mental health professionals is fair to them or us. Mental health is a growing issue, and I believe we can explore this. I truly believe that the men and women on our force have been an organization focused on positive police services for years, and I believe they welcome continued improvement and innovation in how they complete their sworn duties, many of which we do not experience firsthand but reap the benefits of. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker.
Nancy Pennell, followed by Ayush Singh.
Nancy?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I lived here for 3 years from 77 to 80, and then I moved back in 1988 till now, which is 32 years. Even though, and I will give you this, I got what I totally consider unwarranted traffic ticket, I really do care about our police. And they've done such nice things as knock on my door at night, tell me my garage door is open. They've helped me when somebody hit my car at Safeway and then tried to hide their car. So I have to tell you, and I did a ride along with the leadership program. I have absolutely nothing but respect for our police officers. I know that I totally support and respect them, and I do not want us to have it defunded. And I consider it they have taken such great care of us in this town. And yes, maybe all the police departments need a little retraining in mental health problems, but we have an absolutely wonderful, wonderful police force. And I have worked with them on Monday night, on the Wednesday night street fairs, great interactions with them. And I don't think that we could be more blessed than the police officers that we have. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker.
Ayush Singh, followed by Judith Said.
Hello, I'm a Pleasanton resident and registered voter in this city. I called in to speak today on the need for reforming our mental health crisis response. Recent events show just how urgent this need is. The deaths of John Deming Jr. in 2015 and Jacob Bauer in 2018 occurred when both men were in police custody while experiencing mental health crises. In response to the death of Mr. Bauer, Pleasanton Police Captain Larry Cox claimed every officer responded appropriately. Even if this was true, even if we were to overlook every claim of misconduct, that statement is still emblematic of the faulty process by which we deal with mental health emergencies. Indeed, the reality that 2 men could die while officers respond properly should give us all pause. Numerous changes, small and large, would help our community take steps to ensure these tragedies never happen again. One proposed reform is from our neighboring San Mateo County. A 2016 report showed the police's approach of quote-unquote lights and similar to what Pleasanton currently employs, severely discouraged teens from asking for help. In response, the county expanded their SMART Car program, in which trained medical specialists respond discreetly to emergencies. Another model is Fremont's mobile evaluation team, in which a law enforcement officer partners with a trained clinician when responding to a mental health emergency. While additional funding is undoubtedly needed for these programs, each of these Bay Area examples shows that positive change is possible. In an age when police officers are asked to respond to all sorts of emergencies, these reforms would help ease their burden. And the time for that reform is now. 1 in every 4 police crimes and offenses are related to psychiatric commitments or drug use. 60% of juvenile encounters are about mental health emergencies. And there is the tragic irony of our city of planned progress, seeing 2 deaths in police custody in the last 5 years and doing little to address them. By approving concrete reforms, namely 1, increasing funding, 2, responding discreetly to emergencies, and 3, using trained medical staff, this body has the ability to act on what it's heard today and make real lasting change. I want to thank you for your time and also ask that Varun Iyer is now in the Zoom call. And if you could, thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker.
Judith Said, followed by Aryan Ori.
Hello, I'm Judith Said. I have only lived in Pleasanton for 15 years, makes me a newcomer, but I am a native Californian. I have never had personally a bad experience with the Pleasanton police, but when you look at me, you see a small white grandma, so that's not surprising. I want to trust our police, but the system is just a black box. We know what goes in, huge binders full of policies, pretty good policies, most of them. And we know what comes out, a lot of nice times that people have with the police and 3 killings of mentally ill people in the last 5 years. That's not a normal thing that should be happening. And we don't know why, and we don't know how, because the police system is a black box. We don't know how decisions are made. We don't know what happens to officers who make these terrible, terrible decisions to kill mentally ill people. If we're going to trust the police, we got to know what's going on. Unless we have citizen review, there is no way for us to know what is happening. The police department works for us. We're the citizens. The police department works for us. There's nobody who's ever worked for me that I didn't know what they were doing. We're the citizens. We need to know what the police are doing, and we need a citizen review panel so that we will know. Thanks for having this listening session.
Thank you very much for your comment. Next speaker.
Aryan Ori, followed by Krista Vlasek.
Ariane has an older version of Zoom, so I'm going to have to bring them in as a panelist so they may speak. Doing that
Okay.
now.
Mayor, while that's happening, one of the speakers that you called that couldn't get in is now in the room. So when you could recall Laura Danielson, please.
Thank you.
Hello. Thank you everybody for allowing me to be here today. I was here last meeting, and just to reintroduce myself, my name is Arian, and I was one of the organizers of both Pleasanton protests. But I feel like one thing I really need to make sure we know is the magnitude of why we need proposals in the first place. Right? Pleasanton's a great department. We know that. I can't deny that. But it's not about the fact that they are a good department. And we know that even they have a lot of stuff wrong with them. It's about the fact that they could become a bad department, and there's nothing stopping them from doing it. We don't really have enough legal barriers. Next thing, if they really wanted to, they could become the next Minneapolis and simply start protecting our citizens, right? It's about protecting our rights and protecting our freedoms, right? And really the only thing preventing them from doing that is a promise, right? And we see I heard from other people just now, some really harrowing tales about how people of color are not treated well even here. And we are not a minority here. We are a very large group in Pleasanton. And my life, if it's depending on the police, I don't want my life guaranteed by a promise. I want my life guaranteed by a law. If you don't think Pleasanton police isn't hurting people, you're being vastly ignorant, right? And ultimately, we need to make this change. We need to make this change now. And to all of those who think that we need our freedom protected, if you really wanted our freedom protected, you would be out here on the streets with us. You would be fighting to make sure that our police doesn't hurt us. And you would work to actually be patriotic and do what's right for your country. Black Lives
I didn't do that. He dropped off.
Okay.
He must have had a bad connection.
Okay, you want to see if Laura Daniels is in the room?
She is. Go ahead, Laura.
Yes, hello. I'm calling regarding the resource officers at the high schools. I have experience as a high school district nurse and experienced very many 5150s at the high school. They were often the kids were treated to cops putting them in handcuffs and ambulances being called and them being taken away. I hope that since we're talking about things that we can do with the police department, that we could look at the resource officer position, not let the high schools abdicate their responsibilities for treating mental health issues and crises at the high schools and having it be a criminalized behavior, or what seems to be a criminalized behavior with handcuffs and police officers in uniforms. I believe that it could be treated better with counselors, people who are trained for emerging medical or mental health issues. And sadly, I believe we need a resource officer at the high school due to the possibility of violence, school shootings and all of that. But I think it would be, the students would be much better served if there were counselors and people who were trained specifically for those issues, treating those kids and getting those kids help. Oftentimes kids were put in handcuffs before their parents even arrived at the school. And I can't imagine how traumatizing that is for those kids years and years later, and how that would make you feel about a police officer. So please, 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 when you consider changes to the police department, please look at that aspect of the resource officers. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Laura. Next speaker, please.
Krista Vlasic, followed by Emma Reddy.
Krista? Hello?
Hello.
All right. Hi, my name is Krista Vlasic, and I am calling to defund the Pleasanton Police. I open with this demand immediately because it seems that the idea of this demand has been plastered as an outrageously wild proposal by the council, particularly last week mentioned by Carla Brown. Although you may not make that demand, you are part of the council that represents those of us who are, and I'm here to make this demand clear and note that in the weeks surrounding this outcry in our community, it seems that there is listening and learning being told to all of us as a pacifier, yet our requests and demands have fallen upon your ears with silence and inaction. Why open the community listening session by talking about yourself? That doesn't sound like listening to me. Policing is a very clear system used to uphold oppression. And when I say defund the police and reallocate the funds, excuse me, it's because these terms and conditions can't wait. There's lives at stake here, and I reject any and all current and future increases of the Pleasanton police budget. At $30 million, we can begin to defund by decreasing the overall city's budget by a minimum and immediate 50% with an additional increase over the next year. How can you ask us to move on from defunding what you haven't addressed actually any formidable action? After defunding the police now and continually, the Pleasanton City Council should also move into demilitarizing our communities by disarming police officers, law enforcement officers, and all private security. We should also see the removal of cops from hospitals, withdraw police initiatives that support immigration tactics that police Black and brown bodies, and prohibit any and all trainings in relationship between the US law enforcement and other various global military actions. While defunding and the demilitarization tactics are happening, we must also immediately remove all police from our schools, including all public and private establishments. Pleasanton needs to aid and support in the removal, not only within the PUSD, but also our neighboring community colleges and universities to do the same to protect our residents in their pursuit of higher education. By dismantling this relationship between the police and schools, we are stopping the profiling and discriminatory actions taken against our community. By creating an atmosphere without policing in schools, we can eradicate zero tolerance punishments acts such as suspensions, expulsions, repeal truancy laws, and other incarceration-like methods that disproportionately affect Black students while in school. I guess that's the end of my time. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Emma Reddy, followed by Rishab Raj.
Hello.
Hello.
Great. Hello, my name is Emma, and I'm a former student and graduate of Amador Valley High School. And I believe that mental health crises in schools should be handled only by professionals that are dedicated solely to mental health. According to the Pleasanton Police Department website, one role of our current school resource officers, or SROs, is to be counselors for students. However, it is simply unreasonable to expect SROs, who are trained as law enforcement officers, to also be experts in mental health, which requires 4 to 8 years of specific higher education. We need to follow Portland, Oregon's lead, for example. Portland Public School District Superintendent Guadalupe Guerrero decided to remove SROs from his schools, and instead of having officers roam their 9 high school campuses, Superintendent Guerrero intends to invest in counselors to improve the mental health of students and have their officers return to the patrol line. This is something we can easily implement in Pleasanton. Reassigning our 2 current SROs to other units within the department would help PPD tackle the issues they are better trained to handle. We need to invest in more counselors or psychologists because far too many of our students suffer from poor mental health. According to the California Healthy Kids Survey for the 2017 to 18 school year, 30% of 11th graders in Pleasanton reported feeling chronic sadness and helplessness, and 15% reported to have seriously contemplated suicide during the previous year. Those numbers have only gotten worse since the 2015 to 16 school year survey, with an increase by 4% and 2% respectively. We are clearly not doing enough and aren't giving our students the resources to battle these mental health problems. Many people struggling with depression benefit from psychotherapy or counseling, and if we provided such a specific service at our schools through a designated mental health professional, I think our students would benefit greatly, and hopefully the levels of stress and anxiety that myself and hundreds of other students felt in high school would no longer be an issue for other students. Thank you all for your time, stay safe, and wear a mask.
Thank you for making time to be with us. Next speaker, please.
Rishab Raj, followed by Peshwan Z.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right.
We can hear you.
Good evening. My name is Rishab Raj. I'd like to thank you all for the chance to speak at this meeting. Tonight, I'd like to propose a solution to the 3 incidents of police violence that have troubled Pleasanton recently: reparations. I know the term is very politically charged, but at its core, reparations are the only way for this community to move forward and heal from these traumatic events. The case for reparations is simple. To this day, we have no footage of the circumstances surrounding John Deming Jr.'s death, despite the PPD issuing body cameras to all officers, and the store where the incident occurred having surveillance footage available. The PPD claimed Deming was a dangerous threat, with superhuman strength and enhanced by a substance he supposedly took. They searched for this evidence while holding Deming's mother at gunpoint and came up empty-handed. The Demings eventually filed suit but settled outside of court for $285,000. While supporters of the police may believe this was a reasonable conclusion to this tragedy, they are wrong. In reality, Pleasanton paid a mere $87,000, and an insurance company covered the rest. The city of Pleasanton never accepted liability for John Deming Jr.'s death. All they gave was a measly $87,000 for the loss of a man who had his whole life ahead of him. The amount of money given to families is not the point of reparations. The city must apologize for the pain and suffering these families have gone through and will continue to go through unless this council chooses to act. This cycle of violence and failing to take responsibility solves no issues. After every killing, our officers pray that the process of healing may begin once again soon. But true healing can never occur unless the city accepts responsibility for their actions and repairs their relationship with these families. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Peishuan Z, followed by Robin Huang.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi, my name is Peishuan Xie, and I'm a registered voter and a resident of Pleasanton. And I'd like to start off by thanking Mayor Thorne and the city council members for giving me the opportunity to speak at this meeting. And tonight I'm asking for funding for trained mental health professionals to deal with the mental health crises instead of having our police officers respond to such emergencies. According to the police department's 2019 report, 22% of all, quote, crimes and offenses since 2015 have resulted in psychiatric commitment. And an overwhelming 60% of juvenile calls to police are about mental health crises. As someone whose entire education has been at Pleasanton schools, I know mental health is a huge issue that has fatal consequences if individuals are not helped and treated properly. However, our police officers don't have the mental health training to properly respond to these emergencies. They're already burdened with preserving public safety, and we should have mental health professionals step in to ease the workload of our police officers. These professionals are specifically trained in responding to mental health crises and have a better understanding of what care a patient needs. I understand the concern that police officers are there in case an individual becomes combative. However, fully armed police officers cause more stress for individuals experiencing mental health emergencies. In one situation, a woman experiencing such emergency specifically asked EMTs not to let the police in because she felt scared and afraid that she would be restrained, even though she didn't pose a threat. I'm not saying that police officers should be fully removed from scenes of mental health emergencies, but rather they shouldn't be the point of first contact. Let trained mental health professionals treat people experiencing these crises while police officers are there as backup in case things turn violent. Our police officers are there only to maintain public safety, but the point of first contact must be with a trained professional. The bottom line is that it's unfair to ask our police officers to take on so many tasks, just as it's unfair for our community to not have access to trained mental health professionals. Having these trained professionals will not only reduce the stress placed on our overworked officers, but allow for the community to have a professional mental health resource as well. Thank you again for taking the time to listen to me, and I urge the council to act on what they just heard. We must do better for our community, and that change will start today. Thank you.
Thank you for your thoughtful comments. Next speaker.
Robin Huang, followed by Andrew Pereira.
Can you hear me?
Sure can.
All right. Good evening. My name is Robin Huang, and I am a registered voter. I just want to make sure that people who weren't able to get into the call earlier can get a proper chance to speak. First off, I would like to thank the City Council for this chance to speak, as well as all of the work that you guys do for the city. I appreciate it. Before I read the statement, I hope that the City Council would consider the fact that for many youth of color, especially first and second generation immigrants, our family members may feel too intimidated to participate, perhaps due to language barriers or lack of knowledge about the local government. In light of this, I wanted to share with you a statement from a parent in the Asian community of Pleasanton, and I know this council will have the courage to act in support of concerned parents like the original writer of this statement. Dear members of the City Council, in college, my son was not getting well. One evening, being alone and lonely and depressed, he called his friend and said he wished to die. Sometime later, policemen knocked on his door. Frightened, he thought he would rather kill himself rather than be captured and confined in some unknown place. So he grabbed a kitchen knife and stabbed himself and fell down. He was carried to a hospital emergency room and he got suspended from his college. My family came to live with him in America 2 years later. He could go back to school with a petition. Looking back, I wish some mental health expert would have visited him that night to listen to him and comfort him instead of the police. I think there are many families who are afraid to call for police when a mental episode breaks out on their child or spouse. I really want to see more support for mental health instead of more police. Sincerely, a concerned parent in Pleasanton. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker.
Andrew Pereira, followed by Anvitha Abhinand Iyer.
Hello?
Yes.
All right. Hello, my name is Andrew Pereira, and I am a resident and registered voter here in Pleasanton. Thank you, council members and Mayor Thorne, for giving us a chance to speak tonight. Alameda County has a homelessness issue. According to The Independent, there's been a 43% increase in unhoused individuals over the past 2 years. This issue disproportionately impacts Black members of our community, who represent 49% of the unhoused population, but only 11% of the county population. But Pleasanton has almost no resources for the unhoused. The city of Pleasanton recognizes that housing is an issue here and outlines a couple solutions in the general plan. In order to enhance housing choice in the Tri-Valley for Tri-Valley workers, the plan encourages the efforts of sub-regional housing organizations and initiatives, such as the East Bay Housing Organizations, Alameda County's Every One Home Plan, and the Tri-Valley Housing Opportunity Center. But encouragement is about as far as Pleasanton is willing to go. There's no funding actually committed to any of these organizations. All Pleasanton has is a $475,000 grant that these organizations can apply for if they choose. And while Pleasanton claims to support these organizations do not in turn list Pleasanton as an official endorsement, perhaps because of this lack of assured funding. On page 3 of their 2019 annual report, the PPD describes a special enforcement unit in Pleasanton that deals with homeless outreach, consisting of 1 sergeant and 2 detectives who work closely with surrounding agencies and community partners. However, the nature of these partnerships are not described anywhere else in the report or in any documents released by the department. Pleasanton claims to care about the issue of homelessness, but is yet to back any of these claims with action. The special enforcement unit needs to be disbanded and the funding needs to be reallocated to human service organizations in Pleasanton or in the surrounding Tri-Valley. I look forward to seeing how the City Council deals with this issue with action. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker.
Anvitha Abhinand Iyer, followed by Varsha Matapusi.
Mayor Thorne, I don't see Anvita in the room, and if I may, this would be a good time to remind people that who have spoken, if they could drop off Zoom, which would create some spots for others to join the meeting, that would be very helpful. They can catch the live stream on YouTube, City of Pleasanton, or on Tri-Valley TV channel 30.
And Mayor, can I also, I think a speaker that had been called that was unable to get in might now be in the waiting room, and his name is Varun Iyer. I think you called him earlier, so when you could recall him.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Varun, are you out there? Varun?
Yes.
I'm sorry, hold on.
Am I audible?
There he is.
Oh,
Go ahead,
okay,
Varun.
awesome.
We'll start the timer again, please.
So, hello. Many people today have called for increased police transparency and citizen oversight. I have a specific request for Chief Swing in order to realize some of these asks. Pleasanton is a city of families. As I understand it, almost 25% of Pleasanton residents are children under the age of 18, and many more residents are parents and family members of these students and care deeply for the well-being of these children. Chief Spiller, the previous police of the PPD, recognized the importance of children and families and included specific sections about juvenile interactions with the police in each of his annual reports. This is how we know that more than 60% of police interactions with the juvenile residents of Pleasanton were because of non-criminal quote unquote incidents and psychiatric holds. In order for the city council and the people of Pleasanton to exercise their obligation of civilian oversight, they must have accurate and complete knowledge of the department's actions. Chief Swing, I would ask you if it's within your power, and I don't understand necessarily the police's power structure, but if it is within your power, please include specific information about juvenile interactions with the police in future annual police reports so that the city council and the people of Pleasanton can better understand how the police interact with the people of Pleasanton. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker.
Varsha Matapusi, followed by Sachi Bayani.
Hello.
Hello? Hello?
Go ahead, Varsha.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. My name is Varsha. I'm a registered voter in Pleasanton, and I graduated from Amador Valley High School in 2019. And I wanted to express my support for the reallocation of the police budget towards specific crisis prevention and reduction strategies, including mental health resources. Reforming the police budget will reduce the current burden placed on the police force, which handles a wide range of cases. Having specialized response teams, which could include healthcare workers, social workers, or mental health professionals to handle cases such as substance abuse, domestic violence, homelessness, or mental health cases, will allow for a safer and better Pleasanton. Police officers are trained more in use of force tactics and instinctual training, rather than civilian social interactions, which are often the first step needed in de-escalation. I believe it is extremely important to invest directly in our community by reallocating the police budget towards supporting marginalized folks in Pleasanton. I also believe having civilian oversight over our police department will be effective to increase transparency and accountability of our police force. This will improve the quality of investigations over misconduct, reassure the community of a fair and just disciplinary process, and foster communication between the community and the police. I hope that the ideas expressed today go beyond just a listening session and turn into real action in our community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Next, please.
Sachi Bayani, followed by Lou Cooper.
Sachi?
Yeah, hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, hi. So I'm talking to express my support in the reallocation of funds of PPD to other resources in the area. I spent my whole life in POSD, and here's something that happened to me which really made me think this through. When I was about late elementary school, PPD had got these super cool SUVs, but guess what? My elementary school didn't really have a fence around it, and my school had robberies and lockdowns quite often in the area. 10-year-old me was huddled in a corner of a classroom scared for my life while my police department had new SUVs while I didn't have a fence around protecting me. I don't know, I want to make sure no other elementary kid or any other student in our district has to deal with what I had to do. Please reallocate the funds somewhere else. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Lou Cooper, followed by Barbara Comstock.
Hello, my name is Lou Cooper. I've been a resident of Pleasanton my entire life, and I want to speak on behalf of people who don't necessarily understand what defunding means, because I want to explain that 1/4 of our city budget goes to policing. This is the largest section of our budget goes to policing. When we say defund the police, we don't mean completely getting rid of police. We mean reallocating those funds to mental health services and other parts of the police, things that the police have to be in control of that they don't necessarily have the proper training for. We do not want to send a armed man into a situation that has to do with mental health or homelessness when they are not equipped for those things. If we defund some aspects of the police and give it to services that are more willing to do this, we can create a safer and better community. I also would like to speak on behalf of the police in schools. I have seen the police in schools specifically go after Black and brown and other people of color, and it is very evident that the police are there as an intimidation and not really to help students. If Pleasanton can send in police, they can send in psychiatrists and mental health services that can actually benefit all students and can actually create less crime if we're stopping it early by giving students the support that they need. We have one mental health counselor at Amador, and she is overworked and is paid for by donations and not from PUSD or Pleasanton. If Pleasanton has the money to send in police, they have the money to send in psychiatrists instead. I urge you to make action and not just listen, and truly listen to the youth, young people, and other people in support of defunding and reallocating funds of the police, because we can make serious change and actually improve Pleasanton. And my heart goes out to any victims in Pleasanton of police violence. My heart is with you. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Next speaker.
Barbara Comstock, followed by Erin Guerra.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, good. Hi, I spoke last time, and so I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you again. I am really encouraged by the listening sessions that you guys are having. I'm hoping that this is the beginning of a process and not just the end of it. There were so many things I had on my list of things I want to talk about, but one thing that I didn't mention last time that I'd like to talk about tonight is a survey. I'm worried about the voices that aren't being heard during these listening sessions, especially of our communities of color. And I think a survey that went out to the community and was followed up with phone calls or whatever would amplify those voices. I also really want to talk about bias. As a former teacher here in Pleasanton, I always had to spend some time reflecting on my practice and making it better. I don't think we can rest on our laurels of being a good community. I think we have to constantly be re-examining. And one of the things I think we really have to examine is our implicit and explicit bias. And that's ongoing training. That wouldn't be a one and done kind of thing. That would be something that officers would have to go through over and over and over again, because it's peeling the layers of an onion back. And every time you peel a new layer, you're better able to do your job. I think that would be great training for everybody who serves the community, not just police officers. But I do hope that as you look at policing and you're looking at all the different 8 Can't Wait and the 21st century policing and community oversight, that bias training is included, as well as really reaching out to the whole community and getting input from the voices that aren't being heard tonight, especially if they couldn't get in on Zoom. So anyway, I'll end with that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your comment. Next speaker.
Erin Guerra, followed by Jim McSherry.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi. The first thing I want to talk about tonight is the President's Task Force on 21st Century Policing. The document states on page 1 that law enforcement culture should embrace a guardian rather than a warrior mentality. The Pleasanton Police Department has somehow warped this into the idea that the warrior and guardian are compatible and not contradictory, found on page 11 of the implementation report. This is the opposite of the President's Task Force finding, and if we are going to use this document as a framework for how to move forward, we should make sure to actually follow it. The warrior mentality is dangerous, as can be clearly seen with the murder of unarmed people across the country, including Jacob Bauer and John Deming Jr. here in Pleasanton. Looking further into the PPD's use of force, they have a use of force rate of 0.06%, meaning that the vast majority of incidents have not needed a forceful response, including the fact that a firearm was pulled 0 times over the last 2 years. Contrastly, there has not been a single reported officer death in Pleasanton in the last 20 years in the line of service. Given these numbers, it is a ridiculous idea that every officer carries a service pistol on every call, which has such high potential to end in tragic, unnecessary violence, and has. As such, I call on the City Council today to pass legislation to remove weapons from many officers, especially those who are patrolling or responding to nonviolent calls. I would also like to repeat my calls from last week to freeze the Pleasanton Police budget and redirect money to other departments, such as Human Services, which has a budget less than 10% of the police departments, yet provides vital social services, and to establish a separate mental health department, including hiring crisis workers, social workers, and others who can respond to calls instead of officers, including dedicated on-campus counselors for our students who face high rates of anxiety and depression in our schools. Finally, I would like to echo Councilwoman Testa's call. At the end of last week, she called for this meeting to involve a solid plan of action for the future and not just to be a listening session. I believe it's really important that as a city council, you guys act on these issues in a pressing manner and not let this happen over a slow period of time. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker.
Jim McSherry, followed by Julia Smith.
I'm sorry, I don't see Jim McSherry in the room.
Okay, Julia Smith. Julia Smith.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Julia Smith and I'm a student at Amador Valley. Today I'll be sharing the stories of the 3 victims who were killed by the PPD. In 2016, 19-year-old John Deming was a young man with a boundless thirst for life, was well-mannered and respectful. When the police officers confronted him, however, he was agitated and aggressive. He broke into a car dealership on First Street, clearly in a distressed state. Soon after, there was an altercation in which the police officers had minor injuries. PPD shot Deming and early that morning, he was pronounced dead. These officers could have chosen many different ways to combat the situation, but instead they were responsible for the killing of an unarmed man who never got justice. In 2017, a father had a domestic crisis that caused his family to call the police. The father walked out of his house with a firearm in hand, which was not pointed at anyone. He was clearly distressed and needed help. The police officers shot and killed this man while the police left the situation completely unharmed. This husband, father, and a citizen of Pleasanton was denied his fundamental right of life. The police officer who killed this man was never charged, never fired, and faced ultimately no consequence. In 2018, the parents of Jacob Bauer told the police that their son was mentally ill, yet harmless. The Bauer family reached out to mental health facilities only to find that they were unavailable. And after the family's request for help was unfulfilled, Bauer caused a disturbance at a grocery store that caused multiple police officers to restrain Bauer without warning. The victim was reportedly tased, hit with batons, and surrounded by multiple police officers. Eventually, the PPD suffocated Bauer to death. 100% of these cases in which police officers killed people in Pleasanton, it was because of a mental health crisis. Police officers are not qualified to de-escalate situations or to be mental health or social workers. These victims of police killings needed organizations they could turn to in order to help solve their problems. Pleasanton Police does not have these vital resources adequately and readily available, or Pleasanton at all. We need to reallocate funding from the police department into organizations that will truly help our people, not attack and kill them. These organizations include Pleasanton Schools, which already lost $11 million this year alone. By moving funding into places such as schools and mental health services and resources, we can truly continue to make our community one of the safest places to live.
You need to
Thank you
wrap
for your
up.
time.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Ward Kanowski, followed by Joe Dye.
Am I on? Yeah, am I on?
Yes.
Okay, just a couple of statements that concern me from the July 14th special meeting of the City Council. The first one was that it was the first time in 24 years that a deep dive has been done on the policies and procedures and use of force practices of the Pleasanton Police Department, and that it's been 13 years since there's been since the last review by the City Council. I've been a Pleasanton resident for 26 years, and what these statements tell me is that a thorough assessment of the police department has not been conducted in almost the entire time I've lived here, and that the most recent review and findings would now be hopelessly outdated. This is all the more reason that a review of our police department should be conducted by an external third party to ensure that it is objective. The fact that a review has not been conducted in such a long period of time means that a soup to nuts type of assessment has not been a high priority. The scope of this external assessment should be subject to review and approval by a community oversight panel who will be responsible for advocating for the accountability of the Pleasanton Police Department to our broader community. Out of such objective review, oversight, and advocacy can flow the necessary changes. In addition, use of an outside resource working in concert with an oversight panel can help ensure that the information and data gathered is reviewed through the lens of impacted community members, such as John and Rose Bauer, people of color, and the homeless so that their voices are elevated during the process. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker.
Joe Dye, followed by Jeff Yang.
Hello.
Hey.
Okay. Hi, I'm Joe, a high school freshman from China. Ever since I was in preschool, I was taught that the police are honorable guardians of society. In cartoons, movies, and TV shows, the police were always catching robbers and murderers, fighting crime, and saving innocents. On the news, every now and then, a heroic deed of the police was reported. Police officers helped my friend and I come to peace when we were in a conflict. To me, they were the closest thing the world had to actual superheroes. After the tragic death of George Floyd by the hand of a police officer, waves upon waves of protest started. People were angered by the injustice that took place and sick of police brutality. As the protests grew larger, the mainstream news channels started broadcasting clips of police fighting against peaceful protesters, but I saw a different side of the story. Among the peaceful protesters were looters and rioters who wanted nothing but chaos. Clips of people looting Apple stores and burning down Target began surfacing. There was even a video of rioters shooting explosive fireworks at the police. What shocked me wasn't the behavior of these degenerates, but the sheep on social media defending them, saying no justice, no peace, and defund the police. To those people, I ask you, what is justice to you? Is it looting and burning down innocent businesses? Is it taking money away from already underpaid police officers who have families and mouths to feed? Is it calling people who risk their lives to keep you safe bastards? I honestly wonder who will call for help in an emergency situation. Would a society without the police be better? Let's look at a real life example. Chaz, an autonomous zone in Seattle created by protesters, got rid of all police within the area. A number of news channels portrayed it as this utopia where people have true freedom and equality, but it was nothing close to that. Criminals, anarchists, and drug addicts were everywhere. And ironically, when a Chaz supporter called for help when he was robbed, nobody came. Defending the police brings us one step to a future like this. Ask yourselves, is this the world you want your kids to live in? It is sad that in today's society, defending the police is something bad. The same people who say ACAB are the ones against stereotypes and generalization. I've been called a racist for defending the police and not agreeing with rioting and looting. Someone said I'm uneducated for saying Blue Lives Matter. They said there is no such thing as blue lives because they chose to become the police, but people can't choose their own race. This enrages me because somehow it has become shameful to choose to fight for justice. I struggle to believe that millions of years of evolution led us to this point, hating the very people who protect us. But my beliefs will stay unchanged, and I will always back the blue. God bless America. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Jeff Yang, followed by Carolyn Gang.
What was the name, Jeff?
Hello.
Hi.
All right. Hello, my name is Jeff, an incoming freshman at Amador, and I'm gonna start my spiel off with a question. What is the most important part in a neighborhood? The answer should be safety. And how is our safety kept? Is by the polices. And today I am here to support the funding of our polices. And I will explain my views from the perspective of my personal experiences and neighborhood safety. So I've had 3 personal encounters with the police. The first is when I was in elementary school, where their DARE program. And the officer that taught us was very nice. I couldn't forget how nice he was. We had fun while learning. And the second one was in middle school, where the in-school officers told us about school rules. It was very informational, and we got our questions answered. Some people say that other people can do these just as well, but I think that the police are way more influential for children than some random social work. My third experience was when I was hit by a car while biking. The police came within 2 minutes, and they helped me very quickly. And I was even able to go to school without being late that day. As for the neighborhood safety, most of the neighborhood in Pleasanton is without a security gates and without guards. And we need police to keep us safe. And the crime rates in some places are very high, but not in Pleasanton. Pleasanton is the most safe city in California. So that means our police are doing a great job. And I know that there are places where police are violent, but Pleasanton is not one of those places. And Pleasanton police do a lot for the city, And why should we use the fault of other polices to punish the police from here? We should not defund the police, and let's continue to support the Pleasanton Police. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker.
Carolyn Dang, followed by Rong Wu.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, you can.
All right. Good evening. Today I'd like to talk about a Pleasanton resident named Amy. In March 2017, Amy became one of 483 individuals placed under a 5150 psychiatric commitment by the PPD in 2017. And she became part of a statistic that is categorized under other crimes and offenses in our police reporting. What Amy, a high school freshman, wanted most was care. After all, 50% of all lifetime mental illnesses develop by age 14, and as of 2015, the majority do not receive adequate treatment. Also in 2015 was the murder of John Deming Jr. by Pleasanton Police at Specialty Sales Classics on First Street. And despite the common narrative, Deming's behavior was not the result of drugs, but mental illness instead. And he was identified not as a condition to treat, but as a threat to beat into submission. In Amy's case, at age 14, she was placed on a 5150 hold at Amador Valley High School by two sworn, fully armed police officers, with the opinion of only one other school official. Too often do we expect our police officers to play many roles, whether that be crisis managers or mental health professionals. When they act in these functions, incidents are categorized as offenses, which furthers the stigma of mental illness. Incidents should not be associated only with the sight of a police officer. They should be met with mental health professionals and trained clinicians to promote recovery, such as a co-responder model in the mobile evaluation units of Oakland and Fremont, as well as the Alameda County CAT team. To reduce the primary role of officers in mental health crises not only reduces police burden, but also destigmatizes the existence of mental illness. Individuals in crisis are not threats for the way, nor are they a set of miscellaneous symptoms, because mental illness will never define the value of human life and ingenuity. Because the girl I call Amy was me. I urge you to prioritize these goals in an action plan for the future of community policing. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments.
Thank you,
Next
Carolyn,
speaker.
for sharing your story.
Next speaker, please.
Rong Wu, followed by Stephen Wang.
Two more speakers and we're going to take a break.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Rong Wu. I'm a registered voter. First of all, I'd like to give a big shout out to the Pleasanton Police Department for their tremendous, terrific job to keep our community safe. In the beginning of the June, there were so many protests in the nationwide, and we saw from the news there are lots of protests that eventually turned violent, that harmed the local residents and the small business. We also had two protests, and our PPD has done a great job to make sure those protests are carried peacefully and to keep our communities safe, and at the same time to have those protesters' voice heard. And I think that this involved tremendous planning, execution, and coordinating work behind the scene. And we have been living in Pleasanton for the last 12 years. And police officers to us is more like the community friends. We in the farmers market around the neighborhood, and also in the school area, we're always seeing those police patrol cars. Some are volunteers. We feel we are in good hands. We are being taken good care of. And also, I want to mention that their program. Both of my kids graduated from those. It is amazing to see they are teaching them great values and characters that will benefit for their entire life. So we fully support the funding for the police, and also we are seeing the crime rates has been rising in the recent years. So I'm not sure if we defund the police, how police department is able to protect the majority of the good residents. We know those regular
Ma'am,
life we are living with
you need to wrap
actually
up.
build upon their contribution. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. One more speaker.
Stephen Wang.
Stephen?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. Hi, this is Steven. I have lived in Pleasanton for 8 years. I enjoyed my life here. As for the Pleasanton police, I think they did an excellent job in serving this city. In this May, there was looting in Oakland, in San Francisco, Walnut Creek, Hayward, and Union City. At that time, I worried about the safety in Pleasanton. Then I called the police department and told them my concern. They addressed my concern, and they did protect our beautiful downtown and Stone Ridge Mall from the looting. They performed their job very well, and and I think we should give them sufficient fund. Considering the population growth in Pleasanton, I think we will need more and more, we will need more police service in the future. So it is a bad idea to defund the police. I want people to know, if you saw criminals or you are in danger, please call 911. If you found someone has the mental issue, you should call the hospital. Please do not call the 911 for the mental health issue. Yeah, that's all. My conclusion is that we should support our excellent PPD with enough budget. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. We're going to take a 5-minute break. Please keep it to 5 minutes. And turn your mute buttons on. So
Just remind you guys, I need to count you in. Whenever you're
Sorry?
ready. I'm gonna
Yeah.
count you in whenever you're ready.
Okay.
Is everyone back?
All the council members are back, yeah.
All right, everyone just needs to be back.
Yep.
All right. And in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, cue.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Next speaker is Wenli Tian, followed by Shelby Ferrari.
Hi,
what-
this, hi, this is Wenli. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good evening, everyone. My name is Wenli. Thank you for the opportunity to share my opinions. Well, I and my family strongly support our Pleasanton Police, and we are strongly against defunding police. I'd like to share our experience selecting Pleasanton as our home. In 2018, when we came to California, the first place we chose to live was San Francisco City because my husband worked there. But immediately we found many streets in San Francisco City are always smelly, dirty, and dangerous. You know what? And one day, I and my little daughter even saw a young woman was robbed of her handbag by 2 men just jumped off from a car. That was happening just in front of us. We were so scared and realized that we needed to find another place to live as our home. So after 2 weeks of research, we relocated to Pleasanton. Well, in Pleasanton, we found this is a completely different community, which is peaceful and safe. I remember the first week in Pleasanton, one night I found I was lost on the street. You can imagine how scared I was due to the experience in San Francisco City. So I called the police office. Immediately, the police officers came and drove me home. I will never forget that night and the help and the safety the police officers brought to me. So I don't know any social workers are working during night, but I do know police officers are always available and responsible. So I believe that our police department has made great contributions to the peace and the safety of our community. So again, at school in particular, the presence of police officers and even the cars is a warning and caution to criminals. It prevents crime at school campus and protects our children and school community. So we don't want Pleasanton to become another San Francisco City. So again, I and my family strongly support Pleasanton Police. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Shelby Ferrari, followed by Kira Thordson.
Is our speaker out there?
There she is.
Hello? Hello?
She was and then disappeared. Yeah, she dropped off.
Okay, speaker.
Kira Thordson, followed by Clara Wrong.
Kara? Kara?
She needs to unmute her phone.
Kara? Now, why don't we go to the next speaker and then come back to her?
Clara Wrong, followed by Simran Regmi.
Hello.
Hi.
Good evening. My name is Clara Wrong, and I'm also a registered voter and Pleasanton resident. And I'd first like to thank you for the chance at speaking at this meeting. Tonight, I'm here in support of one of the strongest internal checks on the police, whistleblowers, and what the City Council and the Pleasanton Police Department should do to protect them. It's no secret that police culture has a code of silence or a thin blue line, which is not to be crossed, limiting internal accountability within police departments. But our police officers are here to uphold the law, to protect our community from the dangers that risk our lives. And for an organization that's so strict about ensuring that we're all law-abiding citizens, we don't see the same rigor applied to rules and regulations within the police department. And while many people commenting here today believe we're too fixated on the actions of a few bad apples, the issue is that even the most moral police officers become complicit to a system that punishes doing the right thing. This lack of protection we're speaking up against wrote the stories of officers such as Shanna Lopez, Regina Tosca, Frank Serpico, and many others, showing so-called good apples usually have their careers ruined for whistleblowing. And rather than rewarding police officers who act within the law and removing those who do not, the current system does the opposite, rewarding officers who engage in misconduct and silencing those who do not. And ultimately, in order to rationalize this kind of behavior to themselves, police officers have to convince themselves that the people they or their colleagues are hurting deserve it. If our police department had more protections for whistleblowers, if doing the right thing was encouraged and protected, more of our officers would come forward with instances of misconduct. The public shouldn't be in charge of finding the bad apples. We should encourage internal accountability. And although this won't solve everything, it makes huge strides in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Mayor Thorne?
Yes.
Mayor Thorne, Kira is back in the room.
Okay, let's get her on in.
Hello.
Hi.
Good evening. My name is Kira. I'm a Pleasanton resident, a City of Pleasanton employee, and a 2020 graduate of Foothill High School, as well as a registered voter. The issue of police reform is multi-layered. Change has to happen at every level of government, and it has to happen now. Otherwise, we as a society will find ourselves back here again after another senseless incident of police brutality when there have already been so many. The only way we can get successful, meaningful, and lasting widespread police reform is if you, the City of Pleasanton, join us in advocating for police reform. And remember, listening sessions mean nothing without concrete action. Number one, the council must support and advocate for reforms in the Santa Rita County Jail. According to the California Department of Justice, Santa Rita Jail has one of the highest rates of in-custody deaths in California, being dubbed barbaric and, quote, the most dangerous place in Alameda by several investigations. By not pushing for reforms such as recidivism reduction programs, access to mental health care and facilities, and ending the use of prison labor in a facility where our police send the majority of those convicted, we are part of the problem. Number two, we need to create a statewide decertification for police officers. California is one of the few states that does not have a database showing whether or not officers have been accused, charged, or convicted of misconduct in their previous jobs. The murderer of George Floyd, Officer Chauvin, had 18 complaints on his record and should not have still been on the force. We used to have a system in 2003, but it was ended through lobbying efforts, and this needs to come back if the Pleasanton Police Officers Association wants to fully realize their value of making sure that only the best and brightest end up on our police force. We must push for a statewide system to hold them accountable and weed out those quote unquote bad apples from ever getting hired. Finally, I would like to advocate that you publicly express your support for the End Qualified Immunity Bill currently on the floor of the House of Representatives and Senate, which would further hold our police officers accountable through transparency and a system of concrete accountability. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker.
Simran Regni, followed by Akanksha Madi.
I don't see Simran in the room.
Okay, next speaker then.
Akanksha Madi.
Hello? Hello?
Okay. Hi. Hello, Mayor and Council members. I am a 2019 Foothill graduate and an 8-year Pleasanton resident. Today, I'd like to talk about another topic that has the potential to make policing more dangerous and invasive in the future. Facial recognition technology, or FRT. The use of FRT is perhaps the biggest infringement of privacy in the US today. This technology is often practically Orwellian, as it allows government officials to survey citizens and track every one of their movements. This technology has been proven to be more dangerous to minorities. A 2019 federal study showed people of color were up to 100 times more likely to be misidentified by FRT than white men. With this increasing minority population in our city, FRT can never properly be used in Pleasanton without being disproportionately racist. FRT has already been used by the FBI against Black Lives Matter protesters to limit their activism and question them. Thus, it can potentially discourage people from exercising their First Amendment rights. Additionally, one of the largest databases on surveillance technology, Atlas of Surveillance, does not mention whether or not Pleasanton uses FRT. Given the blatant dangers with using this technology, here's what the council must act on now. The PPD must be fully transparent on the use of this dangerous technology. We need to know whether they have FRT or not, what specific devices they use, which companies they contract with for this technology, and have an itemized section of their budget detailing the cost and date received for all of these technologies available to the public. But this is only the minimum the council should do. If Pleasanton does in fact use FRT, they should instate a temporary or complete ban, just as the city of Alameda did recently. I hope this council uses the information to enact an action plan that is in favor of increased transparency to maintain and improve the trust between the PPD and the community. Technology can definitely aid policing in the future, but we must be careful with what specific technology we choose to use. Thank you for the time.
Thank you very much for your comments. Next speaker.
Basuda and Isha, followed by Sylvia Tian.
Good evening and thank you for your time. My name is Isha Shah and I'm a Pleasanton registered voter and the Vice President and Ambassador of the Tri-Valley chapter of Happy Period, a nonprofit organization working to bring menstrual hygiene products to the homeless community in Alameda County. We are asking City Manager Nelson Fiolo if it is within your power to work to increase efforts to make information for homeless and low-income housing resources easily accessible on the City of Pleasanton website and establish a separate homeless services department under the City of Pleasanton by reallocating funds from the police budget. Currently, the city's homeless outreach program is a multi-departmental program where police liaisons connect the homeless community to various organizations funded by the City of Pleasanton that aim to ensure the safety and security of our homeless citizens. However, we question why law enforcement officials are responsible for an issue that doesn't involve law enforcement. Instead of police officers acting as a liaison between these two entities, we ask for the implementation of a homeless services department under the City of Pleasanton in order to allow officers to focus on law enforcement in Pleasanton rather than a socioeconomic and health issue such as homelessness, which they are not adequately trained to handle. According to a U.S. Department of Justice, on average, only 10 hours of police training are spent on mental illnesses and 13 hours on domestic violence. A city-designated department will be equipped with trained mental health, financial, and other homelessness-specific professionals, will make homeless resources more accessible to the sheltered and unsheltered homeless in our community by having a direct phone line to contact and a designated website with all resources, which the current outreach program doesn't directly provide. At this time, the main homelessness resource the City of Pleasanton directs its citizens to is the CityServe website. Although there is little issue with the city collaborating with a nonprofit, CityServe's website isn't regularly updated. For example, the Our Impact section of the website reads, 0 participants served through case management, 0 individuals prevented from entering homelessness, 0 homeless individuals housed. This fails to provide accurate information about what the nonprofit is doing with the funds offered by the City of Pleasanton. We ask Nelson Fiolo to work to establish a city-run homeless service department and increase efforts to make information for homeless and low-income housing resources easily accessible on the City of Pleasanton website. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for your comment. Next speaker.
Sylvia Tian, followed by Keith Lai.
Sylvia?
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Council members. I'm Sylvia Tian, a longtime Pleasanton resident. Tonight, I would like to present you with some fresh data. We created a survey to find out how many people in Pleasanton would like to support a strong police department and how many people would like to defund police in Pleasanton. It's all conducted via social media. Here's the result. So far, 491 Pleasant residents responded to the survey, and 99 of them strongly support to refund the police. Only 4 people support to defund the police. Apparently, the silent majority speak up in this survey. that they support a strong Pleasanton Police Department. Secondly, I would like to share my own experience with police in the past 20 years of living in the United States. I'm an immigrant, Asian woman with colored skin and small size figure. Every time a policeman showed up in front of me, two kinds of things must have happened to me. One, I violate the traffic regulations. Yes, I speeding and do not stop fully in the stop sign. Secondly, I need help from them. When I was faint, when I was in medical emergency, they showed up and helped me. In my personal time in the past 20 years, at least two major crises happened to me, and its police person helped me. Two incidents in my own time. In short, Pleasanton Police have done everything gracefully and professionally. I appreciate their dedication to help people like me. Above all, I believe the police department is the only organization close to our daily life and uphold the social justice for all of the civilians. The policemen and women are the individuals that are the icon to guard the civilians from evil conducts. So I strongly support a refund police and against defund our police. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your thoughtful comments. Next speaker.
Keith Lai, followed by Rachel.
I don't see Keith in the room.
Okay, Rachel.
We have three Rachels, so.
This Rachel signed in just as Rachel, no last name.
We can roll the dice here. There's a Rachel Sanchez. I'll start with her.
Okay.
Okay, hi.
Hi.
My name is Rachel Sanchez. I'm a resident of Pleasanton. I'm a Foothill High School graduate. I was your ASB president. I was a We the People second place national finalist. I've been a counselor at your summer camps, and I'm now a student of education at USC. First off, I want to say that I am in complete support of defunding the police, especially in agreement with the multiple teachers and counselors who have spoken about removing student resource officers from all of our PUSD schools and replacing them with more adequate and accessible counseling services for students. To echo the earlier sentiments that have been stated, our students and kids are facing real life mental health issues that the police department and the resource officers are not equipped or trained to handle. Instead, they are trained to criminalize these students, which can ultimately lead to them being maybe checked into a mental hospital that is not going to actually provide them with the resources that they need, and criminalizing these students. So that I have full support of removing them from all of our schools, as well as defunding the police. But I do want to speak to the council members, as well as some of the people who have spoken against some of the younger constituents and citizens who are speaking up. I really encourage you and urge you to actually listen and take action when young people are speaking. We're not speaking up because we hate you and we just want to see your work be destroyed. We want to feel heard and feel like we're actually being engaged with. So council members, I hope that you start maybe looking at the camera a little bit more, trying to be engaged with people who are sharing their traumas with you, because frankly, it's really disappointing to hear people talk about their children being killed and to not show any facial expression. I'm not trying to say that you don't care, but as someone who's just watching this and watching the live stream, that's how it's coming across. So I hope that you listen to this and that actual action is taken, but thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Mayor Thorne?
Yes.
I did a little process of elimination with the list. I think Rachel's son would be the next speaker.
Okay. Rachel?
Hi, my name is Rachel, and I'm going to be a freshman next year at Amador Valley High School. In 5th grade, I went through the DARE program with Officer Dave, and all in all, it was super fun. I enjoyed it a lot, and I learned a lot from it. My family and I have never, ever been treated any differently than we should be by police officers. We're Chinese, and my parents immigrated here. I hear a lot of people say that few bad apples ruins the whole stock, but that's not necessarily true. Like in Minnesota, the police department, it's not right to look down at the whole administration and the whole entire police system, including our police. It's like when you're in class and the teacher says, if one kid talks one more time, the whole class is dismissed later, and no one likes that, and that's not fair. In my school, with the police there, I've never seen them being racist or biased to any kid, and I believe that they're here to protect us. You've all seen the news of like school shooters and stuff, and I know if there was a dangerous person on campus, I would be terrified, and I would like to have police there. I trust the police, and if there was any person running around with a gun, even though they're not shooting, I would want the police there. If you call to disarm the police, who's going to protect you when a person potentially on drugs holding a gun runs up and down the street? Are you going to endanger a psychiatrist's life by asking them to help that person? Or are you going to trust a trained police? Of course, there are exceptions for people who aren't threats and who need adequate mental help from professionals. All in all, I just wanted to give some appreciation to the police because it seems like you guys aren't getting enough these days. And thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Next speaker.
Satya Yalamanchi, followed by Zoe Yao.
Hello?
Hello?
Yes, go for it.
Okay, perfect. Good evening. My name is Satya Yalamanchi. I've been a Pleasanton resident for 8 years, and I'm registered to vote in Pleasanton. I'd like to thank our city council members and the police department for the chance to speak at this meeting today. Tonight, I'd like to discuss our police department's mental health policies by looking at two things. First, the Pleasanton Police Department's current crisis intervention policy, and second, the absence of the Alameda County's Community Assessment and Training Program, otherwise known as CAT, from this policy. According to the PPD's most recent annual report, the PPD responded to 453 psychiatric commitments in 2019, the highest of any category. Given this statistic and the deaths of Jacob Bauer and John Deming Jr., it is clear that mental health needs to be better addressed. Currently, the PPD's policy emphasizes the role of the Alameda County Multidisciplinary Forensic Task Force, defined in section 419.1.1 as a voluntary coalition of law enforcement agencies, allied and allied service providers. While such a task force is necessary, little to no information is easily available to the public, such as the members of the task force, how often the PPD meets with them, and what happens at these meetings. In addition, the PPD's policy manual states in section 419.5 step B that mental health professionals are not required to be present on the scene at different incidents, and that the decision to call professionals onto the scene is entirely in the hands of the police. To fix these problems, I believe Pleasanton should join CAT to fix this. The county describes CAT as a collaboration among healthcare service agency programs to ensure the crisis response system is more flexible. CAT shares many of the same benefits as Eugene, Oregon's CAHOOTS program. This program saved Eugene, Oregon over $15 million a year, and CAT would bring similar fiscal benefits to Pleasanton while also alleviating some of the burden from police officers from work that they are not trained to do. If the city is truly concerned about improving public safety, then this council must amend the current policy and join CAT to properly address the biggest public safety issue that our police department encounters, mental health crises. Thank you, and please wear masks.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker.
Zoe Yao, followed by Ian Stick.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. Hi, my name is Zoe Yao, and I'm a resident of Pleasanton. I graduated from Amador. Our We the People team also placed second at the national level, and I represent Pleasanton at an Ivy League university. I'm a registered voter in Pleasanton, and I will be voting this November. Your actions as council members will inform my voting decision, as well as the votes of thousands of residents in Pleasanton. The police have killed 3 people in the past 5 years. In the past 5 years, nobody has died at the hands of another citizen. 2 of those 3 people killed by police were suffering from a mental health emergency. I call for funding of a division of mental health professionals equipped to handle mental health emergencies instead of police officers. Trained professionals should be the ones to handle these emergencies. They are trained to de-escalate mental health emergencies so that nobody is injured in the process. Doing so would lessen the burden on our police officers, allow professionals to step in and provide support where our police officers are unable to. Police officers simply lack mental health expertise. Mental health professionals do. They have the ability to properly de-escalate a situation because they have a better understanding of mental health issues. It's just their job. Police shouldn't be the primary handler for mental health emergencies, but they can still be available as backup to mental health professionals. Police officers are simply not trained to deal with situations like this. Their job is to protect our community, and they can't handle the complexities of somebody suffering a mental health emergency. It's just not their job to offer mental health services, and that's why they're not trained to do so. If we have money for a tank for the police department, we have money to provide mental health support to our residents and our citizens. I am a resident and a citizen of Pleasanton, and I hope to bring my children back to live in Pleasanton once I'm old enough. I expect my council members to enact real change that your constituents are calling for. Your youth and your residents have taken the time to conduct extensive research, publicize, and prepare for this meeting. It now falls on you as our representatives to listen to us and make real change. I urge you to draft a plan by the next city council meeting and take real action beyond simply listening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker.
Ian Stick, followed by Krishna Prakash.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay. In California, the minimum requirement of de-escalation training for police officers is 2 hours every 2 years when they finish the police academy. Judging by the number of incidents where police officers have not used proper de-escalation protocol, this number is not enough. We need frequent testing. I do not believe we should lock police officers in rooms and have them take 5-hour assessments on de-escalation protocol, but rather every 6 months to 1 year, a short assessment should be made to make sure our police officers are mentally and physically prepared to perform their best in the field. Second, I encourage all of you to research ranked choice voting, as is a good system to make sure smaller political parties are heard. Lastly, I'd like to point out that I've seen at least 6 of you look down at your phone throughout this meeting for extended periods of time. And it just seems like you're being ignorant. When a lot of us finish speaking, you'll say, "Thank you, next speaker." And when this is done, no change is made. Everything that we are saying is going right over your heads. So when I stop talking, I encourage you to have discourse, talk about something, promote change, get something done. Thank you. Black Lives Matter.
Thank you very much. And I'll just for your information, tonight's meeting is only the list. Next speaker.
Krishna Prakash, followed by Nick G.
Hi, can you hear me?
Sure can.
Great. Good evening. My name is Krishna Prakash, and I am both a resident and voter. I would like to start off by thanking Mayor Thorne and the City Council for listening. I will be addressing 2 main topics today. The first being racial or implicit bias training given to officers, and the second being the overall response that our community has had toward police reform and issues dealing with race. The Pleasanton Police Department should adopt a more comprehensive training program centered around communal experience. In the final report of the President's Task Force on 21st Century Policing, sections 5.2 and 5.3 explain the idea of law enforcement agencies engaging community members in training processes and working with local academic institutions to integrate a culture of education that constantly extends into the sphere of police action. Furthermore, section 5.9.1 of the same report emphasizes the need for police to collaborate with advocacy groups that, quote, represent the viewpoints of communities that have traditionally had adversarial relationships with law enforcement. Understanding the relationships between people of color and governmental institutions cannot adequately be covered in just 1 week of training, and police officers ought to understand the roles that power has in perpetuating issues like systemic racism. Secondly, I would like to draw attention to ourselves, both as individuals and as a community. In the past week, we have heard those calling for police reform be referred to as anarchists, communists, and left-wing propagandists in an attempt to devalue the arguments that they have been making. I would like to impress upon all those listening that our actions are neither a question of our politics nor testaments to any specific ideology. Instead, they pertain to our moral character as a city. Regardless of your political or personal views surrounding recent events, failing to comply with police orders should not be the signature on the warrant for your death. Inaction is no longer an option. I hope you consider the opportunity to be on the right side of history and make Pleasanton safer. Us, youth, are your legacy. Thank you. Black Lives Matter.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker.
Nick G, followed by Gail Naylor.
Hello.
Hi.
My name is Nick. I've been on these meetings a couple times, and usually I speak on 2 points. The first one being last time I brought up the idea of requiring an external review. I'm disappointed to see that the council moved forward with taking in a plan that only looks to the internal police department as part of that review. As Councillor Brown mentioned last time, y'all are not experts on this, and similar to how you do not have expertise as cops, you also do not have expertise as people of color. No one on this council does. Additionally, I would like to, while normally I come on here and advocate very strongly for the reallocation of funds to unarmed officers, I've actually already heard so many wonderful points on that, and people have stated this so well. And I'd like to instead make a point to a couple of the different people on here. To the young people on here who don't feel like they're being heard, I want to really, truly, strongly advocate y'all. You have come here. You have come here to do political action. Take the next step. Apply for positions within the city council. 3 out of the 5 members of this council will go up for election next year. If you are not pleased with your council members' speed, the amount of action they've done, please apply. I know that I will be, and I'll be incredibly sad to see if someone who's insanely uninformed, am the only person who's applying who have the same ideals as me. Please apply. For those of you who think that who have had positive experiences with the Pleasant PD, I'm so happy for you. Honestly, I truly am. I'm glad you have. But we need to think about not just ourselves, but the people who are suffering from the PPD, the stories that we've heard on this call. I really do want to end with a quote, for lack of the sort of stereotypical of thisness. Now is the time to care selflessly about one another. Dr. Anthony Fauci from the CDC.
Thank you very much. Next speaker.
Gail Naylor, followed by Ariana Cisneros.
Gail?
I'm trying. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So thank you for holding this listening session again. I want to say that I agree with many of the other speakers that Pleasanton is a great and a safe city. I've enjoyed living here for 20 years and I want it to stay that way. But I can't ignore the murder of George Floyd and the aggressive way police departments have responded to protests across the country. And when I say aggressive, I mean that with my own eyes, I've seen police officers in riot gear arresting reporters without saying a word. I've seen police officers yelling and pounding batons on the car windows of 2 Black teenagers, pulling them out of the car while 2 white teenagers were allowed to drive away. I've heard from my own adult child who was tear gassed in another city that police prevented protesters from leaving after a curfew was declared and then arrested the protesters. This is the environment we find ourselves in, even if this is not the environment of Pleasanton. So is it any wonder that many of us are asking questions? And locally, of course, we've seen 3 mentally ill men not survive interactions with the Pleasanton Police Department. As a project manager, I know better than to accept a budget reduction without a scope reduction. That's why I support reallocating some of the $30 million of police funding to create robust services to respond to people in mental health crisis by reducing the scope of the police department. This should not impact response time for emergencies because they do not have to perform those jobs anymore. I also want to see a full-on community of character style program to educate our community on those alternatives, including when to call the police and when not to call the police. I'm very lucky to live in Pleasanton, but I am a white, affluent, able-bodied person with good mental health, and my experience is not everyone's experience. My life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is not supposed to be at the expense of someone else's. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your thoughtful comments. Next speaker, please.
Ariana Cisneros, followed by Herb Ritter.
Ariana's not in the room.
Okay, call Herb. Herb Ritter.
Go ahead, Herb.
All right, I'm here. Welcome. Are you there?
Yes.
All right. Hey, I'm still up. Yeah, this is Herb Ritter. I'm currently the chair of the Planning Commission, and I'm speaking on my own personal opinion. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about, I've been listening quite a bit over the last months on this, and I think we do have some opportunity to improve our police department. I think we have a great police department. Councilmember Penton said a couple things earlier that I liked. National use of force standards that emphasizes the reverence for life, de-escalation, a duty to intercede, proportional response to dangerous incidences, and strong accountability provisions. I think we need to put those in when we talk about our own police. I also think we need an early warning system to identify officers that may need more training and mentoring. I was also the chair of the Planning Commission, where we came out with the 2025 public one high priority for us for our business is in our community, and keeping our response time under 4 minutes, non-emergency response time under 20 minutes. And the other one that I wish we would have pushed a little more was engage with more community members and stakeholders and have at least 12 times a year to educate them about what the police and fire does. I think getting engagement is key. Also, with 37 forced use of forces in 2019, that's less than 3 a month. I think we do need to give our police some more support from the mental illness standpoint of support. We do have an oversight committee. It's called a Youth Commission, Human Services Commission, Bikes and Trails Commission or Committee. Once used to have an officer sitting on that. And then we used to have Parks and Rec that came and talked to, police officers came and talked to us. So please don't do over-regulation, but utilize the committees for our volunteers that we have right now. Thank you for your service and all you do, and welcome to our family, Chief Swing.
Thank you for your comments, Herb. Next speaker, please.
Emily Zhao, followed by Alex Breen.
Only one Emily in the room, Emily Lipkind.
Okay, she's down a little further. So
Okay.
Alex Breen, followed by Jill Miller.
Okay, go ahead, Alex.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, my name's Alex Breen. I lived in Pleasanton for 11 years. I'm the father of 2 kids in middle school here. I care a lot about my kids growing up in a safe place, a just and equitable place, a place free of racial bias, a place free of unnecessary violence. I'm supportive of our city's brave police officers, but that doesn't mean I can't be critical of our police department's policies. I feel like we can maintain our very low crime rates while also making changes in police practices that increase trust and improve outcomes. In that aim, I feel strongly in the following 3 changes, none of which I think are radical by any stretch. Number 1, our police department requires civilian oversight, as should all of our government agencies. Secrecy and non-disclosure are antithetical to running a transparent and effective government, and it leads to distrust. Number 2, our police department should ban uses of force that in the heat of the moment are proven to lead to unnecessary violence, including the use of chokeholds, shooting at moving vehicles, not exhausting alternatives before shooting, and not requiring comprehensive reporting when firearms are used. Moreover, our police force should commit to implement practices that emphasize de-escalation. Number 3, it doesn't stand to reason that mental health intervention is the best use of our police officers' core skill sets. And as other speakers have noted, it has resulted in tragic outcomes. I think it is vital we take a hard look at ways to better organize and deploy our government services when it comes to mental health. That means reallocating responsibilities and budget from police department to dedicated mental health teams staffed by mental health experts. This is not about abolishing the department, it's about modernizing our police safety practices to improve outcomes. We have the opportunity in front of us to make improvements to community policing, to build trust, and to make our city an even better place to live. I hope our city leaders will rise to this challenge. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Speaker?
Jill Miller, followed by Sarah Green.
Hi, this is Jill Miller. I'm a 14-year resident of Pleasanton. I'll be brief because many people have already covered the comments I want to say. But I do want to say that I do support the reallocation of resources from the police department to mental health professionals who are better trained to handle those types of cases. I support civilian oversight of the police because police are people too and will need to be policed. And I don't think that existing communities on bikes or the Arts Commission have the bandwidth to be the types of committees to handle that type of oversight. And finally, I encourage the council to take action beyond this listening session to address the matters that so many people have voiced so passionately. And finally, even though I'm not young, I vote too. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment. Next speaker.
Sarah Green, followed by Urvashi Singh.
Only one Sarah in the room right now, Sarah Ma or Mai.
I'll go to the next speaker. Who's next up?
Urvashi Singh, followed by Rachel Wysong.
Urvashi's not in the room.
Okay,
And
we'll go.
we got Rachel.
We got Rachel's
Hi,
all
can you
over the
hear,
place.
can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. Thank you, Mayor, City Council, and Police for having this listening session. I want to make this point really clear. Many of us calling to defend the police are not anarchists. We're not trying to burn the world down. Rather, we see beyond the current system. We have a vision for improvements we can make to our community. We believe wholeheartedly there's something more than the same system that has favored the powerful, the rich, white, able-bodied, able-minded. I hope in hearing these arguments that if you see no reason to defund the police, that if you are happy with the status quo, that you can try to step into someone else's shoes and see where the police have been more harmful than helpful and where we can better support our whole community. It is wonderful that so many of our residents are helped by the police, but it's not true for all of them. So I'd like to voice my support for civilian oversight of the police, as well as defunding. We have all lived with defunding education, with defunding many other social services over the years, while police budgets continue to rise. I'd like to see some of the money distributed to other services that are barely making do with budget cuts year after year. I'd like to see our schools and young people supported. I'd like to see our unhoused neighbors supported. I'd like to see people trained in appropriate de-escalation sent out rather than armed police officers every time there's a mental health crisis. The last point has been made abundantly clear here in Pleasanton. It's not working. Let's make sure the next time someone needs our help, they don't wind up dead. Thank you for all your time. I love all the youth who are passionate on this call, and we're all voting in November, so thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker.
Megan Chung, followed by Jim Wright.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, my name is Megan Chung, and I'd like to thank our City Council members for the chance to speak at this meeting. Today, I'd like to talk about the use of the DARE program. First, if you look at the broader history of DARE, it was created by the LAPD in 1983 as a strategy of the war on drugs. This was explained as a government crackdown on all drugs, but in reality, Black communities were being disproportionately targeted by increasingly funded police departments. So while some Americans were learning the slogan, "Just say no," others were falling victim to substance abuse due to systemic problems and economic disparities, and they were being locked up because they didn't just say no. If you City Council members are committed to actively fighting racism, this alone should be a reason to rid and replace the program. Beyond that, however, we can look at the statistics of DARE being ineffective. In a study conducted by the Behavioral Healthcare Services for Alameda County, 41% of high schoolers consumed alcohol in the last 30 days of the study. And this was in line with a University of Michigan study conducted for the entirety of the United States. Further, in a meta-analysis conducted by statisticians at the University of Cincinnati, it was revealed that teens enrolled in the program were just as likely to use drugs than teens without it. DARE also largely teaches students to deny peer pressure, failing to recognize drug use as the result of mental health disorders. According to a 2016 National Comorbidity Survey, 2/3 of teens who developed alcohol and substance abuse had battled at least one mental health issue, something that from previous speakers in this meeting have mentioned that the police do not and have not properly addressed. I urge you, council members, to take action and replace DARE. The most recent data I could dig up from 2003, $200,000 was allocated for DARE. And there are many alternatives to teaching abstinence against drugs beyond police officers taking an extreme just say no approach and using the fear of consequences to promote this. There are programs such as Safety First that teach you risk reduction when teens inevitably come in contact with drugs, or even counselors and mental health professionals, as previous speakers have mentioned, which kids should trust in first contact when they feel trapped or uncomfortable with drugs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker.
Jim Wright, followed by Kevin Andrews.
Is Jim Wright in the room?
He's
Jim?
there and unmuted, but he's not speaking.
Jim Wright?
Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Jim Wright. My mother was born in Pleasanton and I was born in Pleasanton. I'm a 73-year resident of Pleasanton. Also, I have a unique perspective as to policing. I was a California Highway Patrolman for 31 years and am now retired. I strongly object to the idea of defunding the police and or reducing their budget. The police are here to serve and protect. If we defund the police, who's going to be here to serve and protect us while we transition? Also, if we defund them, these are men and women not only in uniform, but their husbands, wives, fathers, mothers, grandparents who need this income in order to properly go along with their lives. Also, we talk about mental health. I agree, there's a lot of mental illness in the world, but are we going to hire someone to be a 24-hour mental health responder, or are we going to allow the police to respond and stand by and have a quick response and try to settle the situation while we get this professional help? It is important for us to know that police officers are human beings. There are some that have made mistakes and should never have been police officers, but the vast majority are there to serve and protect and keep you safe. I believe Pleasanton Police is one of those that is that way, or we would not have such a low crime rate in this city. I support the police, I respect the police, and we should all respect the police. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Kevin Andrews, followed by Barak Morris.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
We can.
Awesome. Okay. Hello, everyone, and thank you all for your time. My name is Kevin Andrews, and I'm a Pleasanton resident and a registered voter. I'm speaking today about a program that Pleasanton should consider adopting on some scale that others have addressed. The CAHOOTS program, implemented in Eugene, Oregon, specializes in dealing with mental health crises. Run by the White Bird Clinic, a nonprofit social services organization, the program sends a mental health worker and an EMT to deal with mental health problems and emergency calls instead of the police. 2 of the 3 most recent police-involved deaths in Pleasanton were related to mental health crises. Police officers aren't trained to deal with this, and we need professionals who are better equipped to help those people. The CAHOOTS program works closely with the Eugene Police Department and is dispatched through 911. Dispatchers in Eugene filter calls, sending the violent and criminal ones to the police and others to CAHOOTS. The program responds to issues like substance abuse, suicide threats, and helping homeless residents. The CAHOOTS team has 3 vans with medical equipment and supplies for the homeless, and are able to drive people to hospitals or back to their clinic. The dispatch team is also able to call for an ambulance or police support if necessary. In 2019, 24,000 calls were handled by the CAHOOTS program, with the police needing to intervene only 0.625% of the time. Staffers who have undergone extensive crisis intervention and de-escalation training show up to the scene in casual clothing and are able to provide a less threatening environment for people than armed police officers. The Eugene Police Department has a budget of $70 million to look after a population of 170,000 people. CAHOOTS is able to operate with just 3% of the PD's budget. CAHOOTS saves the city $8.5 million in public safety costs and saves taxpayers $14 million in ambulance trips and ER costs annually. Other cities like Oakland, Minneapolis, and Portland are looking into implementing this program to better serve their people. By listening to its citizens and their ideas, Pleasanton has the opportunity to set an example for other cities. There obviously isn't a one-size-fits-all solution, but I believe that if the PPD works to create a similar program within the department or with another organization, trust between the police and the community in this town will grow stronger. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for your comment. Next speaker.
Barrick Morris, followed by Paul Martins.
Barrick is not in the room.
Send Paul Martins in, man, will you?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. I spoke a week ago, and I'm not going to repeat any of those items that I spoke about, and this will be very quick. I did a little research looking up that the Uniform Crime Reporting System that is owned by the FBI. And I found out a couple of interesting things. I'm not going to go too much into the data, but in the city of Oakland, the crime rate per 100,000 people is basically 1,300. Chicago is 1,100. New York City is 1,000. Los Angeles is 761. Again, this is crime rate for 100,000 people. Pleasanton is 24. We have a very, very safe city. And that, of course, is the result of our fine, upstanding, well-managed, and well-organized Pleasanton Police Department, for whom I am so grateful for. Now, why do we have, what are the factors? Well, again, well-managed, organized police presence, the right people at the right times in the right places. Let's keep our crime rate exceptionally low by not reallocating current police resources, which of course is code language for defunding the police force. Review, update, evaluate, but no shrinkage. Let's stand up and congratulate and applaud the efforts of our fine police department. I strongly suggest that citizens who are advocating defunding the police go on a ride along, see what the police do, experience it. Don't just fall out under the existing mantra. Finally, the new mantra of social workers taking the place of boots on the ground, to my knowledge, has no real data behind it that suggests it can work. The trying it out philosophy is far too risky for the safety of the people here in Pleasanton. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker, please.
Sika Lahner, followed by Jocelyn Combs.
Hi, thank you so much for listening to me. My name is Sika Lahner and graduated from Amador Valley High School in 2018, and I've lived in Pleasanton for the past 12 years. As a community member, I am concerned about bias, racism, and use of excessive force in our community, especially against Black people and people of color. I would like to see trained mental health professionals and social workers respond to mental health crises, nonviolent substance abuse, and reports of sexual violence in our community. Especially in cases of teen drug use, I think teens cannot be treated as delinquents and criminals, but should be submitted into the care of trained mental health and health professionals to recover. In order to further uplift our students, especially our Black and brown students, I believe we need to remove school resource officers from our school campuses. While I appreciate this meeting, I hope we see real change in our community and real action to address this issue. I'm upset by the previous response to the outcry for the implementation of the 8 Can't Wait policies, in which the PPD posted an infographic claiming they met all 8 policies when they do not. I'm frustrated that this misleading information is still on Instagram and was released in the first place to soothe public outcry rather than working to actually implement those policies being called for. Moving forward, I hope legitimate change is made. I support extensive implicit bias training, but I do want to be clear that I also support defunding the police and reallocating those funds toward mental health resources and crisis prevention resources in our community, especially at our schools. In my 4 years at Amador, multiple students committed suicide, and that is horrifying. Our students return to drug use, help, and not criminalization. We need to work to address the roots of these issues by providing more community resources to all of our community members. As you move forward with your reform plans, I hope that you center the voices of Black and brown community members in your decision-making. Pleasanton would be safer and happier for it. Thank you for listening. Black Lives Matter, and I look forward to seeing these changes made.
Thank you very much. Next speaker.
Jocelyn Combs, followed by Nithya Swaminathan.
Jocelyn?
Hi there.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you. I'm so impressed with our articulate and engaged youth. I hope you listen to them and act on their suggestions. They are our future. So I moved here in 1981 from San Francisco, and my first thought was, where is everybody? I saw no people of color. So I bought a house in Pleasanton Valley. I read the CC&R's codes, covenants, and regulations. One paragraph said that I can't sell or rent my house to a non-white. I thought people of color didn't want to live here. They couldn't live here. That's our history in Pleasanton. A recent ride-along with Pleasanton Police, I asked about racial profiling. He said, no, we don't profile, but we do pull over people who don't belong. Sounds like profiling to me. What I've seen is people with old cars and people of color. My friends, my kids' friends, pulled over. I have a Black friend in Pleasanton. She told me her 3 kids have been profiled 8 times. It's still happening. Let's stop being racist. It doesn't look good on us. I've always been treated well, but then like you, I'm white. I discourage our police union from interviewing, endorsing, or donating to our candidates this year. It would be inappropriate at this time. Again, I support stop profiling, do a community survey with feedback, early intervention with mental health issues, better and more broadly educated police, citizens review panel, and third-party review of police. Thank you.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Next speaker, please.
Nithya Swaminathan, followed by Bill Wheeler.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good evening. My name is Nithya Swaminathan, and I'm a registered voter in Pleasanton. Tonight, I'm speaking to ask the council and the police department to take school resource officers out of PUSD schools and reallocate student mental health responsibilities to counselors or trained mental health professionals instead. To illustrate why this is a problem in Pleasanton, I am reading a statement from a former Amador student who mentioned that he still has trouble trusting the police after an incident with school resource officers. This is a statement written by Arian Barak, part of Amador class of 19. I was reached out to by a fellow alumni to share info regarding my experience with school resource officers. Here's mine. On October 17th, 2018, I was walking to physics class when I suddenly blacked out. When I came to, I was bellied out and I was screaming for people to get off of me. When the vice principal and the police officers got off of me, I knew something was wrong. I was walked to the office and then shortly after was taken into an ambulance where the EMTs told me I had a seizure. I was then taken to the hospital. I was checked for injuries and had several abrasions along my shoulders and neck. Later, when we came back to the school, I had an opportunity to ask the cop why he pinned me down. He stated that it was because I knocked the wind out of him. It gave me the impression that the cop had pinned me down in retaliation or in reaction to my quote unquote punching, even though I had no control over my body. I let my dad talk to the police a bit more and he seemed satisfied with what he heard. I didn't ask any questions after the event was over. I just wanted my life to go back to normal. But the more I thought about it, the more it bothered me. You're obviously not supposed to hold someone down or try to stop their movements while they're having a seizure. Clearly, school resource officers do not have the necessary skills to deal with emergencies at schools. I believe the city council must act to make sure that other students do not undergo the same experience that I did. Speaking as Nithya now, I am a young voter and I will be actively mobilizing other young voters before the council election this year. You saw the incredible turnout for police reform protests a couple months ago. Our opinions are not in the minority. My peers and I will be watching how you respond to our suggestions to inform how we cast our votes in November. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker.
Bill Wheeler, followed by Stephen McEwen.
Bill Wheeler.
Good evening, Mayor Thorne, City Council members and staff. My name is Bill Wheeler. I own Black Tie Transportation. We've operated here in Pleasanton since 1986. In the past 5 years, we have witnessed an alarming amount of theft and homelessness in the area. I have also noticed increased panhandling near just about every freeway entrance and exit to Pleasanton. We have had 2 vehicle thefts on Johnson Drive, homeless man locked himself in our employee bathroom, homeless going through our trash, homeless found sleeping and defecating in the luggage areas of our buses. Last month, on the eve of the countywide lockdown curfew, in preparation of a real threat to our city, we sustained over $20,000 in damage to paint and windows on our buses from vandals. On that evening, myself and my COO stood guard in our parking lot to protect our property. What I witnessed while everyone was at home safe was the dedication of the Pleasanton police of locking down the Stone Ridge Mall and this city. They blocked every freeway exit and entrance, north and south, east and west. And when Antifa and protesters came to make good on their threats, they were forced to stay on the freeway. With incredible precision behind the scenes, our amazing officers protect us from the known and unknown threats. My concern here is that we must be able to match the threat when the threat appears. We need to support our local PD with the tools needed to protect our community. Tools and training, not defunding. What we do need is mental health experts to assist and support our police department and to go on the 5150 calls. We ask too much from our police department. They cannot be all things to all people. It's not fair to the public they are asked to protect. It's not fair to the officers who are charged with this responsibility. We support our local PD, and so should you. I am encouraged by the conversations here. It seems like we will be able to find and to address this mental health issues and to better serve our citizens. What I am not okay with is demand and threats from outside influences who have a national agenda. Yes, we have room for improvement. Who doesn't? What I am confident in is that the leadership of this community will do the necessary work to improve the safety and lives of all its citizens. Thank you, and God bless this great nation.
Thank you, Bill. Next speaker.
Stephen McEwen, followed by Wendy Kimsey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, city and police leaders. We have seen in recent weeks many accounts emerging across the United States of policing reforms being blocked, resisted, and undermined by police unions. Police chiefs, city leaders, politicians, and even many rank and file officers who instigate change have been thwarted by powerful unions who see reforms as a threat, often using intimidation. Can we, the residents of Pleasanton, be assured that our city's police union, the Pleasanton Police Officers Association, will not seek to undermine any initiatives that will hopefully emerge, and that a dialogue can include the input of the unions, who would likely be more to embrace reform instead of resisting reform. And I would also like to echo some of the observations that others have made tonight, that I would like to see greater engagement from some of the city leaders tonight, and ensure that you're listening to the views of the residents. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker.
Wendy Kimsey, followed by Julia Simmons.
Hi, this is Wendy Kimsey. I'm
Hi.
a 24-year resident of Pleasanton. My husband and I raised 2 daughters here, and we think it's a wonderful community, but we can be better. In regards to our police department, I'd like to add, we do need a permanent ban on chokeholds. We need to create a crisis response team to respond to mental health issues instead of the police. We should have formal civilian oversight of the Pleasanton Police Department. The National Association for Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement gives detailed information on the different types of oversight and step-by-step instructions on how to get it started. Their goal is building public trust through law enforcement accountability and transparency. Oversight can benefit both residents and police officers. Oversight agencies can help improve community relations by fostering communication between residents and the police department. These benefits will make Pleasanton a stronger and more welcoming community for all, not just middle-aged white women like myself. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to speak on this important issue. I hope we will be able to see substantive changes in the very near future. We have had a lot of listening, and listening is great, but we do need action, and Black Lives Matter. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker.
Julia Simmons, followed by Sydney Fluker.
Julia Simmons?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening. My name is Julia Simmons, and I'm also a Pleasanton resident, a 2020 graduate of Amador Valley, a former City of Pleasanton employee, and a registered voter. I'd like to thank our City Council members and Mayor Thorne for the chance to speak at this meeting. Tonight, I'd like to talk about police militarization. Ever since the protest over Michael Brown's death in the hands of the police departments across the United States have responded to protests appearing as paramilitary groups equipped with the same weapons and vehicles as Army soldiers. The main reason for this militarization is the Department of Defense 1033 program, which gives excess military gear to police departments who request it for free. OpenTheBooks.com has tracked the amount and value of equipment that departments have received through this program. Since its creation in 1997, the program has given upwards of $7 billion worth of equipment to over 8,000 police departments nationwide. But this is definitely an understatement. Most of the records on OpenTheBooks.com do not exceed beyond 2015. Since then, the current administration has expanded the 1033 program to allow for more types of military gear to be given to the police. At the same time, the Black Lives Matter movement has grown in size and influence, potentially leading many departments to militarize even more. Notably, however, the Pleasanton Police Department is entirely absent from the Open Books database. If they reported on this, it is extremely difficult for the average citizen to access this information. All we know for sure is that the Pleasanton Police Department owns a tank. That's it. Thus, we ask the PPD, at minimum, reveal the following information to make it accessible for the general public. 1. Whether or not the PPD participates in the 1033 program or any other federal program that provides military-grade equipment. 2. Report all materials they receive from such programs, their value, and the date received. And 3. Provide a justification for this militarization. Research shows that militarization does not actually improve public or officer safety. It only increases use of force incidents and public distrust in the police. Thus, all above else, we want the City Council and the PPD to demilitarize the police entirely, or demilitarize the department entirely.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Sydney Fluker, followed by Sarah, S-A-R-A with no last name.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good evening. My name is Sydney Fluker, and I am also a Pleasanton resident and a registered voter. I'd like to thank our City Council members and Mayor Thorne for the chance to speak at this meeting. Tonight, I'd like to talk about gun control and how it connects to a core tenet of police reform, changing the mindset of officers from warrior to guardian. As I hope to demonstrate, gun control is one significant example of why the City Council will need to take a broader perspective to improve public safety rather than simply assigning more training. It's no secret that guns are woven into the fabric of American culture. In turn, however, officers have adopted a warrior mindset, treating every perceived threat as a dangerous one. Officers are overwhelmingly involved in situations where violence is fundamentally not the right answer. But when the solution to every problem is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. Perhaps the best illustration of my point is the story of Philando Castile. Despite complying with all of the officer's commands, calmly informing the officer that he was a licensed carrier and that he was reaching for his wallet, Castile was still shot to death because the officer feared for his life. In our own community, Shannon Edward Estille was killed for carrying an airsoft gun that looked real because the officers, once again, feared for their lives. It is ironic that a country that proudly celebrates their constitutionally protected right to own a gun will simultaneously let the existence of those guns serve as an excuse for officers using excessive and deadly force. There are not many issues the police and police reformers see eye to eye on, but reducing the negative influence of guns should unite everyone. Our City Council must either pass common sense gun control legislation or push for it at a higher level of government to reduce the amount of gun violence in our community and subsequently eliminate the environment of fear that permeates policing. That is what would truly lead to a safer Pleasanton. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Sarah, followed by Christina Nystrom Mantha.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Hi. Dear Pleasanton Mayor and City Council members, good evening. I always have great experience with Pleasant Police Department. With their hard work, and timely efforts, Pleasanton ranked among top 20 safest cities in California. I always feel very lucky to live in such a safe environment due to the hard work from our law enforcement, PPD. Recently, we all experienced or heard the increasing crimes and incidents happened around us. Just last week, one of my friends who live in Alamo we know is kind of safe place, right? She shared her a scary experience. One of evening, she heard the loud noise, someone trying to break through their double door to break into their room. Panically, they called the police department. 15 minutes passed, 30 minutes passed, 45 minutes passed, 60 minutes. Finally, a lady showed up in front of the door. Luckily, the robber, the breakers, ran away by the auto light. Imagine what would happen if the robber be able to run through the door during the 60 minutes call. That's to say, public safety is the highest priority in our community. Reallocating, defunding the police department will put the community in danger. Well, the supporter of the defunding police department might be arguing that maybe there's extra fund to be allocated to somewhere else. I seriously doubt about it. There is much more need and demand than ever the police department needed.
I'm sorry, but your time is up and you need to wrap up, please.
Okay, sorry for that. And I strongly ask the city council to fully support the funding police department, not defund. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Christina Nystrom Mantha, followed by Dale Bowman.
Christina?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I was just talking to my kids. I'm really excited about this dialogue. I appreciate that everyone is looking at us and is taking notes. I think that's fantastic. I think the main comment I wanted to make is that I hope that at some point the police department is able to answer a lot of questions for residents. Because I think a lot of the comments that people are making might be resolved by having some questions answered. So for example, what are the different options for use of force? There's taser, baton, pepper spray. When are they used? And how do officers decide which option to use or not use? What % of the calls involve an individual with a weapon? And certainly, I would definitely say that for the mental health related calls, it would be awesome if we had a social worker or some other mental health professionals that could work with our officers. Definitely interested too in how the tasers work, how much training officers have in mental illness, what are some of the strategies that they're taught and how are they used? How are the body cameras activated and can they be automatically activated? The kinds of different training that officers have used related to use of force. And I think it would be really good for residents just to have a better understanding for what our department does in terms of what different kinds of calls they have, because I think a lot of these questions would be answered. So I'm a huge supporter of the police department. I've had nothing but good experiences with them. And I think most residents, can share that. And I think there's certainly things that we could do differently. And I hope that this listening session brings some change and new ideas. And I hope that at some point, again, you all are able to address these questions and the police department is able to address these questions so that we have a better understanding of, why we have these comments. So thank you so much. Time's up.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Dale Bowman, followed by Andy Lee.
Dale
Sorry, I
Bowman.
had to mute myself. Thank you, Mayor Thorne, State Council, Police Chief, Captain Nelson. I had a whole list of things I was going to talk about, but after listening for 2.5 hours, I kind of narrowed this thing down. One thing, I was listening to the DARE program. I had 2 daughters that graduated from Amador. I had 4 grandchildren that gone to the school district here, all of them involved in the DARE program. And I think they were all better kids because of it. One thing that I don't think we address is I think the #1 problem in America today is not police brutality or peace officers overusing their authority. The #1 problem in the country right now is one-parent families. I'm not going to bore you with all the statistics as far as young men where there's not a man in the household, not a father image, young girls that get into situations when there's not a mother in the household. So if we have the money to, I don't want to defund the police, but if we have the money to work on some of these other social programs to help these kids when they're young, vulnerable, give them programs like the DARE program, some of the other things that are very helpful, like the Boys and Girls Clubs of America, YMCA, WYMCA, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, the list goes on and on. And I just think that we give the kids a better foundation from the beginning. We would be much better off. And the consequences that probably maybe we wouldn't need as many police. But right now, with the crisis and demonstration we're having in our big cities, I would suggest that we increase the law enforcement, not decrease it. And one last thing, I got 2 seconds. Mayor Schaaf from Oakland, house was vandalized, sprayed on it, spray painted, and she called the police. She did not call a social worker. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker, please.
Andy Lee, followed by Ashna Abachat.
Andy is not in the room.
Let's move on then.
Ashna Abachat, followed by Mariana Zuniga.
Ashna is not in the room either.
Mariana Zuniga.
Bingo.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Are you there?
Hello?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Okay. Hello, my name is Mariana Zuniga, and I'm a registered voter for the city of Pleasanton, and I am calling for a reallocation of police funding. The policing system of the United States was created for the preservation of white supremacy. This is a fact, and any denial of this reality is the reason for why Black and brown bodies keep on being killed at the hands of policemen. The current outcry for the abolition and restructuring of the police is not a trendy social movement. It is a result of decades of resistance of people of color against a policing system that does not value their lives, and any other characterization of this movement is quite frankly disrespectful. This is a policing system that has its beginnings in slave patrols and the enforcement of violence and bondage against Black bodies, slave patrols that following Reconstruction actively worked with other military groups such as the KKK, and that then evolved into the current policing system we see before us today. The issue here today is not whether we believe in the good character of police officers. The issue here is that Pleasanton is not exempt from the violent national history of policing within the United States. Acknowledging and accepting responsibility for the history is the true definition of civic engagement, not unquestioning praise. As a city, we need to take responsibility by reallocating funding away from the police department towards mental and social services. We need to emphasize police accountability and transparency. As of now, the police department does not report use of force statistics based on race and gender, hindering the movements of activists who want to hold the police department accountable. As Martin Luther King Jr. noted in a letter from Birmingham jail, justice too long delayed is justice denied. I am a young voter, and I will be voting this November and mobilizing others to do so. Black Lives Matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Fabielle Zuniga, followed by Nancy Allen.
Our next speaker in the room.
Fabiel?
Yes, he needs to unmute himself.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry. Thank you for the opportunity to express my opinion. I've heard people say that we don't need change in our police department with great stories, but I also heard stories about bad experiences, even death. I would like to have a police department where all stories are good stories. That would be a real indication that nothing needs to change. I don't think the problem is trivial, nor the solution simple, but what it's easy is to see that we need change. My name is Fabiel Zuniga, and I've been presidential resident for 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker.
Nancy Allen, followed by Bridget Bisnet.
Hi there. I'm Nancy Allen, a planning commissioner, and I'm speaking for myself tonight. I appreciate this conversation, for I believe that diverse perspectives will drive better decisions. I value our Pleasanton Police Department and would not want to jeopardize Pleasanton's high level of safety. We have something special. But can we do better? Absolutely. We've not had a public discussion on policing in over 20 years, and the time is due. There are 3 areas I hope we address through the process. Most have all been touched on. Number 1 is more support for mental health. I support exploring alternative strategies for handling these complex mental health issues. These are about 20% of all of our incidents. I don't know much about this, and I want to learn more, and I think a lot of other people do, about what some other best practices are. It's not fair to expect our police officers to be experts at everything, including mental health. And I think they can benefit from additional support. I was excited to see that Alameda County is piloting a crisis intervention team called CAT, and I hope Pleasanton has an opportunity to participate. Number 2, I support increased accountability and public transparency to build public trust. I hope Pleasanton is a role model for this area as we look at the 21st century policing guidelines. And we may very well be a role model. I'd like to learn that in the next meeting and see how we can continue to improve. Finally, I do encourage us to do a deeper dive with groups that may be underrepresented in our Zoom meeting tonight, especially people of color. Some may be afraid or have a language barrier. And I'm wondering if there might be any outreach we could do, perhaps with our local nonprofits, that might bring these groups into our thinking a little bit more. Thanks again for taking the time and making changes to improve the life for all of our residents.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank
you. Next speaker.
Bridget Bisnet, followed by Raymond Lee.
Bridget is not in the room.
Raymond Lee.
No Raymond.
Isla Schmedel.
Isla?
Cindy, can you spell the first name?
Iylah.
No.
Rhea M. Rhea.
I don't see that name either.
Amritha Ramalingam.
Got that one.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. My name is Amritha Ramalingam, and I've been a resident of this community for 19 years and a Foothill High School graduate of 2019. I've come here to discuss the importance of reallocating funds away from the police department in order to better fund mental health professionals in our town, a topic which we've seen as a problem in this community through the stories we've heard tonight. We should not have to hear more of these stories in order for change to happen. This is not a matter of political correctness, but rather of human dignity. Individuals with mental illness are 16 times greater at risk to be harmed by policing than other civilians. Mental health professionals are better equipped to handle these instances than our police force. Reallocating funds to trained professionals will reduce the amount of injuries and fatalities that comes from policing, and funds can go back to our schools in order to run better mental health programs for students. Speaking as someone who's gone through our school system my whole life, our schools are not able to properly address mental health issues. Most of the time, all they can do is give us a tissue to dry our tears because that's all they're equipped to do. A moment that happened to me when I was called into the counselor's office my sophomore year after I found out my mom was diagnosed with stage 3 kidney cancer. Some of us have said that this is a radical idea, and to those people who have said that, I have to say this. There's something different about what the time we are living in. Change is happening whether we like it or not. Many of us here are lucky to not have had personal experiences with poor policing, but that doesn't mean we should turn our backs on people who have. So in 20 years, I want to be able to come back here and show my children the place I was born, the schools I went to, and the community we love. I want to be proud of the work we do here today to make a difference for this town to be safer for everyone who lives here for years to come. Thank you and stay safe.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Isaac Elias, followed by Emily Lipkind.
No Isaac, but there is Emily.
Okay, call Emily.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. My name is Emily. I just graduated from Foothill High School, and I am a soon-to-be Pleasanton voter. The current wording of the Pleasanton Police Department manual suggests that the use of de-escalation should be used in civil disputes and mental health crisis. This is simply unacceptable, and I demand implementing a policy to make de-escalation required in all possible situations. The situations when it is not possible should be very limited, and every instance that de-escalation is not used and violence is used instead should be put under a citizen review board. This is necessary to make sure that no person is deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of the law as stated in our Constitution. Furthermore, as of January 2020, Chapter 6, Section 18 of the Pleasanton Municipal Code states that commercial marijuana activities are prohibited on city grounds, and Chapter 16, Section 18 also makes this a penal offense. I would ask that this be treated as a health care issue instead of a criminal one. I would also like to voice my support for my fellow citizens' calls for mental health crisis experts to be called to all scenes where there is a possible mental health crisis, a database of all complaints filed towards officers, reforms in the Santa Clara County Jail, and relocating some of our police budget into social services. And finally, I would like to remind everyone that in order to uphold the principles of liberty and freedom, which I imagine we all hold dear to ourselves, we must remind ourselves that the amount of deaths or brutality by the police and arm of the government is zero. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker.
Mr. Mayor, there is somebody in the waiting room that is concerned because her name was misspelled and she didn't get called. That was Lila Shamel, LYLAHSCHMEDEL. Is she still in the room?
Not by that spelling.
LYLAH? No?
There's no Lila, no.
Let's move on to the next speaker, please.
The last speaker is Richard Lee.
Richard?
Hello.
Yes, go on.
Good. So you can hear me, right?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. So good evening. My name is Richard. I'm a registered voter, a Pleasanton resident, and I believe I represent my family and many people who support the Pleasanton Police Department. But before I talk about tonight's topic, I want to suggest the city to ask for people's address like other cities do when registered to speak in a city council meeting. Our city's decisions shouldn't be influenced by people from other places only for their own political gain. So all stories told tonight should be validated. So now let's talk about the importance of our police department in our life. I consider the city of Pleasanton a safe and peaceful community thanks to my law-abiding neighbors and the hard work of our police officers. Please don't apply what has happened in other places in the country to Pleasanton. In Pleasanton, our police officers have done a wonderful job in protecting public safety, and I strongly oppose the idea of defunding the police department. Quite the opposite. In a time like this we're in now, we need more police involvement than ever to protect our community and to enforce the law and to keep the city in order. Nobody is perfect, and the police officers make mistakes as well. And that's why we need to make sure that the police department has sufficient funding for better training, staffing, technology, and equipment upgrades, rather than to defund. For example, hospital has medical accidents as well, but does somebody want to shut down the hospital? Right, so that's ridiculous. To me, defund police has everything to do for a political reason, nothing to do with protecting our safety. The current political climate in the country is sending a wrong signal to our community, to our law-abiding citizens, and especially to our younger generation about what is right and wrong.
Thank you very much. Yeah, you need to wrap up.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Do anybody else in the room?
Mayor Thorne,
Yes.
there are two individuals with their hands up who did not submit speaker cards.
Okay. Find out who they are.
The first one is Elaine. Go ahead, Elaine.
Oh, I didn't mean to raise my hand, sorry.
Okay.
Check the other hand.
And then Dylan Easton.
Hi, I'm sorry. I joined kind of late. I don't really even know what the speaker card is. But now that I have the floor, I guess I'll get down to business. So I think that defunding the police is definitely not the path to go. If anything, we should move around funding within the police. I'm not sure how much money goes to where, but I know if there's room for bonuses at the end of a police year, then there's definitely somewhere where more money could have gone to help with de-escalation and mental health issues within like the police, protecting those type of people. Possibly giving even more money to the police so that they have possibly longer training courses and more training with possibly judo and something to help them to prevent a criminal or perp from being able to resist multiple officers trying to arrest them at a time. And I know that there is that new non-lethal handgun being put into testing and being looked at by our federal government. And I'm not sure where that'll come from in fundings, if that'll be a federal funding or if that'll be a local funding with our city. But I definitely don't think that police should be defunded. I've had many experiences firsthand with police. And just last week, my buddy was pulled over by a cop. He is a person of color. And I believe the police officer who pulled us over handled it absolutely like they did exactly what they should have done. There was nothing wrong that happened within the situation whatsoever. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else out there? Alan?
There's a Sean O'Sullivan.
Sean?
Hello, can you hear me?
Hey.
Hi, I just want to ask some questions. Is that okay?
We're actually not doing that tonight. You'll get an opportunity to do that at our next meeting.
Okay, well, I just want to make a statement if that's okay.
Go for it.
Okay, I didn't really have much of a prepared statement, but I would just want to echo the sentiments of Julia Simmons regarding the militarization of police and the 1033 program. And I'm hoping that in the future we can create a database or some type of accountability where we can see whether or not the Pleasanton Police Department participates in this program, some way where the Pleasanton Police Department can justify this military equipment. And I hope in the future we can build accountability programs such as a civilian oversight board and a online public database of uses of force so that the Pleasanton community can feel like to have more of a say in police because I believe in community policing, and that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else out there, Ellen?
Keith Lee.
Keith?
Hi, I actually did send in a speaker card and I was watching the live stream, so when my name got called, it was delayed. So you guys moved on to a different speaker. So I'm here to say that not to defund the police and okay. So hi, my name is Keith. I'm an incoming high school student in Amador Valley High School. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We hear this from a lot of our middle school and high school teachers. Most of the time, this goes in one ear and out the other. But what does it mean? Let me read the original text. In the first sentence of the Declaration of Independence states, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that we are endowed by our Creator and with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We can see that from the Declaration that the right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness is unalienable, meaning that it cannot be taken away. After this, the Declaration continues to say that to secure these rights, the governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. From this, we see that it is the job of the government to make sure that these rights are followed, that not even the government can take these away from us. Now, because of this, we know that if we are threatened, attacked, or harassed, the police will be there to write down our case and take it to court. We know that if we are ever in danger, the police will be there to help. We know that if we were wrong, the police would be there to make it right. I ask you, later, if the police force is disbanded, who will be there? Who will be there when we call, when threatened, attacked, or harassed? I ask you, who will be there when we're in harm's way? I ask you, who will be there when to make right what was wronged? Without the police, we are vulnerable when attacked. Without the police, we are helpless in danger. Without the police, no one can protect you. The police are there for us, not against us. We are only hurting ourselves if the police force was defunded. I support having this strong police department in Pleasanton. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you very much. Anybody else, Alan?
That is it.
That's it. Okay, well, I'll close the public hearing. Thank you to all the speakers tonight and last week for the valuable input, feedback, and personal experiences. As part of the council's action plan, there are 2 scheduled meetings. On August 20th, we will be sharing a comprehensive review of the existing policies and procedures of our police department, including use of force, policies and training, and best practices. Then on September 17th, we will review Pleasanton Police Department's implementation of 21st century policing pillars. Both meetings will begin at 6:30. The city of Pleasanton and its police department are committed to continued transparency and open discourse towards providing the highest quality police services to our community. But we cannot do it without you. The participation and collaboration of our community and hearing all perspectives is equally imperative. We hope you continue to stay engaged and have a good evening. The meeting is adjourned.